that Discord as an application conserves RAM resources by pruning old, like not old time-wise conversations, but like it'll just like less. I don't know what its criterion is, but it'll just start.
So no one again. So you still don't know. You went googling for 45
you have a
minutes.
maximum. It seems you have a maximum amount of DMs you can have open, and Discord will start pruning them if you add more. Here's all.
But like you went away for 25 minutes and you still don't understand the mechanism. All right,
because so Discord is very.
But what I'm saying is,
Discord doesn't tell you what their fucking programming is, Shamos.
No, but I'm saying it should if it's programmed right, it follows a deterministic.
Wait a second. If your criteria is deterministic criterias, right, and it seems like a user is able to reliably
reproduce
cause this phenomenon, you can just appeal to that.
No. What I'm saying is, do you think that coding is the outcome?
So hold on, Shamos. Do you think the user in that Reddit post is lying?
Why can't I get this thought out?
Do you think they're lying when they say they can reproduce it?
I wish I had another guy that sounded just like me that would back me up and everything, because it seems like there's two of you and just one of me.
Oh, nice.
High five. I wish we could high five right
now. So what I'm trying to say is, if it's a code, if it's part of the code that makes these things disappear, wouldn't it be some part about the code where it would be
Wouldn't it be reproducible, like in the way that the Reddit user in question was able to reproduce it by forcing like 80 bots to message them?
Existence. I'm not denying the phenomenon's existence.
Okay, so you're not denying its existence. So it is entirely possible that your old account's DM log with Molly has been closed for some reason or another.
It doesn't matter.
It's possible.
Another claim that was made is that another thing that was attested to in that link series is that this can also happen as a glitch. Sometimes if someone DMs you, it can actually just eat the conversation right out of your chat log. So there are a number of ways your chat log can vanish. So the claim that Molly is dishonest for not having the evidence of that claim is just ridiculous, because she doesn't even have the chat log.
Look, before I said that, when I said that, I didn't have the information that I have now. So what are you saying? That I'm at fault for saying what I said then when I didn't have the information that I have now? No, I'm not at fault for what I said then. What I said then was absolutely the right thing to say, given the information that I had. Now you brought it to me. So
why would it be the right thing to say?
What you said to Molly, this and that. Now let me explain what I was going to say. You, who've been honestly looking for 25 minutes, have just now proved that this phenomenon existed, but you still don't even know the mechanism. Yet this is programmed. You think this comes from code? Hold on, I'm still talking. You think this comes from code? Okay, guys. So, see, I don't understand. We get to this point in the conversation, and then it just completely goes to shit. And somehow, in an hour later, I'll be the one banned. That's what I don't get.
Well, just don't say the N word.
You guys are some of the most interruptive. No, but I'm saying why do you constantly got to interrupt me, though? Why do you constantly got to be a cocksucker?
Well, you were being irrelevant.
What I'm saying is, we don't know by what mechanism it does this. Of course, he can reproduce it. Of course, there might be something that can get your whole conversation deleted. But it's not like there's 1,000 messages and the 1,001st one automatically gets deleted and anyone past that. There's no rhyme or reason to what makes it happen. So we still don't even know. So look, it may be the case that Molly's message is deleted, and I'm not dishonest for saying that was the case, because I didn't know this information until it just came to light right now. So don't tell me, good Christian boy. Don't tell me that I'm fucking dishonest for saying that to Molly, because I didn't know that till right now, motherfucker.
He told you that before.
No, that's you being dishonest. That's you using sophistry.
I don't even think I said it was dishonest.
You're trying to read back into it as if I'm dishonest then for not saying what I know now.
Well, maybe we're motivated.
Didn't come to light until about 5 minutes.
That's you, good Christian boy, being a sophist.
It was supposed, and it was like brought up earlier. It was
but
brought
it wouldn't have been
earlier,
brought up.
But after he made his statements, not knowing
about that. It would make no sense.
It was in the conversation of bringing it up. So
here's how it went. I had no idea.
I'm not saying he's dishonest. I'm just saying motivated.
And I said, Molly, and I accused Molly of saying you have no excuse because they must certainly still exist. Okay, then evidence comes to light that these things do get deleted. He proved it more than an anecdote, and then he said, "Now what you said to Molly was dishonest." How could what I said to Molly was dishonest?
I said ridiculous.
how could it be ridiculous even if it wasn't predicated on this knowledge?
Because
See,
you
that's
had
what's
because you had no ability to know whether or not the chat history persisted.
In his experience, the
no.
chat
What I'm
history
saying,
persisted.
everything that
No.
I did know indicated that it does persist.
That's false.
So what do you?
Right?
No.
So
It's
remember
not
the
until
key
you
thing that
brought
you
it up.
forgot. The key thing that you forgot in the narrative was that between you calling Molly dishonest and the evidence coming to light is, like, again, from
No,
Good
I
Christian
never
Boy
called Molly
talking
dishonest.
or
He
whatever you
called
want.
me dishonest.
No,
He called
the thing
me
that
dishonest.
you accused Molly of something because you said that the DMs must be open, right? The point is in between those two, it was like brought up, like, oh yeah, by the way, I've heard about this thing where DMs could just randomly close, and you chose to discount that. But I don't really understand a reason why you would choose to discount that instead of just investigating it.
But that's not what happened. What happened was,
That
I
is
mean,
what
when I
told
made the
Molly,
claim, you literally did say that doesn't happen. You're lying or something like
Yeah.
that.
no. What I said is, I've looked it through all my PMs and I've never noticed that phenomenon. I don't.
That's an anecdote.
I think that you're just.
Oh,
Listen, I just think that I think that you're bullshitting or full of shit. And then once he came and he said, "Look,
that was a
here's
good thing
some
about the anecdote.
here's some forum posts. Some other people have had this phenomenon." I didn't even click it. I just accepted what he said was true. I said that give evidence that it's a more wider phenomenon that's going to expand it out over and on top of just his mere anecdote. So I'm like, okay, this phenomenon exists. And then he said, yeah. Now he said dishonest, but he wants to change his words that he's saying. Now you're ridiculous for saying that to Molly. It's not ridiculous. How is it ridiculous that this is what's so fun? No, you're going to be destroyed once you get to the end of this reasoning. How is it ridiculous with all the information that you had that DMs persist? All the information that you've ever had, every DM you've ever checked persists. You've never had any indication to the contrary. Molly claims that the information isn't there. You given the fact that the account was deleted and it still will be under deleted user, and you think you've given no reason to think any data doesn't persist, then I say that Molly, you must be lying. It must certainly be there. Okay. Then it comes to light way after, right then, where he provides more evidence. Then he says it's ridiculous that I said that to Molly. Why would it be ridiculous, given what I knew?
I already pointed out the thing you
say,
forgot, Shamos. Remember?
My value judgment of it being ridiculous with respect to the situation would just be in virtue of the fact that if I have an anecdotal experience of a given software's behavior and another person has anecdotal experience of a software's behavior, I personally would suspend judgment until some evidence is brought forth that this either does or does not happen.
I did suspend judgment, but it wasn't ridiculous because I did that after.
After I said that, you said, no, you're wrong. Here's here's counter evidence. And you brought evidence that actually wouldn't contradict my claim.
In fact, you said contravening evidence or something.
Yeah, but there's a difference. There's a difference because the first. Let me just talk to Good Christian Boy minus Socrates for 10 minutes or just 5 minutes or however long it takes to resolve this, and I guarantee you we can get this resolved very quickly. Okay. Now, what initially happened? Okay, is you say the first thing that you said is that hold on, give me a second. The first thing that you said was your own anecdote. You said, look, I've looked in the past. I said, Molly, it must still certainly be there. And then that's when you piped up and answered, actually, I've had experience in the past where some of my DMs are no longer there. And then it seemed, your story seemed wishy-washy. It seemed like you didn't know the mechanism. Some are deleted, some are not.
Well, I wouldn't know the mechanism from an anecdote.
Yeah. And so what I'm saying is when you said that, I did then counter back, and I won't deny it, that look, I think you're probably just full of shit or bullshitting or whatever. And fucking, so I dismissed it. I dismissed it on those grounds. And I said, look, I can provide counter evidence to that anecdote that look, I have DMs from over a year ago. They don't seem to be deleted. That's when you said, look, it happens sporadically. So I just realized that, look, what I just said isn't going to be evidence against it because of course, if it's sporadic,
but you can see you continued to present it after I said that.
No. And there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me going against it after you've mentioned something that's just completely like, oh, it's happened to me. Oh, what does it happen? By what mechanism? I don't know, but it does happen. Yeah. And then I say, oh, look, all my PMs are intact. Yeah, I should be able to rationally deny it. But now what happened is you brought sources, multiple sources from multiple people on forum posts that are all claiming to have the same problem. Now, that's way more forceful than what initially happened, and I couldn't deny that with the same way that I just denied that. So when that came to me, I said, yep, okay, that gives evidence. This must certainly exist. This phenomenon certainly exists. He said, well, that's really ridiculous. What you said to Molly was really ridiculous. And what's ridiculous is, no, what you fucking said is ridiculous because that's reading back into it in hindsight. Why is it ridiculous?
Shame
Why is it ridiculous to tell Molly that even though one
Shamos.
person
So
said
bad.
that some of his DMs have been
Shamos.
deleted?
I know you've been
Okay,
gone
so
for 3 days and you got to get it out of your system, but can you be more brief, bro? Your monologuing is boring.
He's done
okay,
pretty much.
so you interrupt a whole line of reasoning just to say that.
Yes. I said what
And
everybody
you guys wonder why I have the most difficult time in discussions. You guys wonder why I like blow my
So
top.
now
and
that
get
you
there.
finished, Luca, are you gonna
No,
respond?
I didn't. The thing is, I didn't finish, and
Oh, okay, well, please wrap it up.
trying to make the same point, and I'm kind of curious as to whether I should restart the original point.
No,
whether I-
continue.
Fuck.
No. What I'm saying is, it's
Andrikis,
kind of
goddamn you!
What did I
Well, it seems-
do?
Oh, I thought it was you who interjected.
No.
Look, all I'm trying to say is something simple as this: it's never going to be ridiculous if all the information that you has points to X, and then you claim X. It's not going to be ridiculous because later on, after the fact that you've claimed X, you found out that actually X is not true. Y is true. Okay. And then they said it's ridiculous that you claimed X. No, it's not ridiculous that you claimed X. It might be ridiculous now in light of this new information, but given all the information I had at the time, it wasn't ridiculous to assert X. And so what he's doing is when he said that, it's ridiculous that you asserted X. It's ridiculous that you asserted X in light of this evidence here. But I never asserted X in light of that evidence there. I asserted evidence blind and ignorant to that evidence. And so it wasn't so what you said is it wasn't ridiculous. In fact, it would be ridiculous to not do what I did because I had all the information pointing in that direction. It would be ridiculous not to answer that way. So you're fucking ridiculous. Now that we've gotten that straight, and now that for once in his life, his little fucking sophistic little buddy didn't fucking chime in or whatever, what you guys might realize is we might be able to have a decent discussion on something meaningful, something philosophically relevant, but I've had to come in here and fucking rebut females' lies that have no evidence. So a female comes in, she
Now,
lies,
If we
wouldn't
were
it
in
be the
a
right
no
court,
time
evidence.
for a
How
good
about this?
Christian
How
boy
about
to
this?
respond?
Let's
Because
just change
now
the
you're in the
subject.
realm of
Let's just
monologuing.
change the
Shamos,
subject
you've gone
completely.
into the
No,
realm
hold
of
on.
monologuing. So maybe
Let's
you're
just
not a
now
change the
credible witness.
subject completely. I'm trying to monologue it to the fact where we can get over
we
this.
should allow the person you're talking to respond.
No. How about this? Let's change
Shut
the
up,
subject.
Shamos.
Let's change the subject.
No.
And let's, for once in my life,
did it
if I was
now,
once
caught
in
being
buddy.
my
ridiculous,
life,
I'd also want to change the subject.
how
too.
about this?
Good.
Once in my life, could I have the good courtesy of being able to just have a normal conversation instead of a bunch of people lie about me and then I have to rebut the lies for an hour and a half? Can I have the good graces of you guys just changing the subject away from the fucking meta discussion, away from the
Why
he
would
said,
you
she
want to
said?
talk to someone?
Shut up for 5 seconds.
Why would
I
you want to
came
talk
into
to
here,
someone and
dumbass.
then not want to hear them
came in
talk?
here,
Very
dumbass, and I had
strange.
someone say something a serious slander about my character.
You're bitching
I know
like
that you
a
think that's
fucking
really
12-year-old
frivolous to you, that you
girl,
don't really give a
Shamos.
fuck. Okay, but I do give a fuck that someone claimed that I said that I was going to kill myself and PM to them, and then they never justified it. They never showed any of their PMs, and they still haven't justified it.
We
So
have
no,
no
I would like to
reason
be able
not
to
to
come in.
believe
Hold on,
Molly.
I think it's sensible for any
Right.
fucking adult.
God fucking damn it.
I think it's sensible for any adult to want to come in and not have to deal with that bullshit.
It's a good
I
thing to
don't
point out that we
understand-
should be agnostic and not just accepting of Shamos' position.
I don't understand how being depressed is a slander against your character. I've been depressed before. It sucks.
No, she claimed that I said to her. She claimed that I said to her in DM that I had threatened to kill myself to her in
I
DM.
believe her.
Hogan, how
Well,
old are
do
you
you
now,
think
Hogan?
that maybe you may have been serious?
show
If
the
you were
evidence.
serious, I don't see how this was a slander against your character. If you were actually just
I'm
depressed.
denying this ever happened, and I'm asking for her to give the evidence.
How
You
many years
admitted
do
that
we
you've
have
been
to
What you
smoking a
said?
lot of weed
I'm
Okay,
denying this.
I
I'm
can,
denying this
time,
ever
if I could
happened.
have a moment, I believe what you were saying, that you said, I'm really depressed right now. I have a lot going on. I'm sitting here in a fishy ship boat falling apart. All I had left was
Post the
Discord.
screenshot.
Now that's gone.
just
nothing
post a screenshot. We didn't tell you to come back up here and just make up more lies and anecdotes. We're
Shamos,
asking you for
shut up on it
actual.
interrupting. You
No,
can't
we're
have it
asking you for
both
actual
ways.
evidence.
Well,
For
maybe it
once in my
happened.
life,
Shut the
for once
fuck
in my
up,
life,
Shamos.
can someone
Shamos,
provide actual evidence?
After
I'm being
Molly is done, Shamos, after
no,
Molly is
she's
done
just
talking,
coming back up here to say the same lies.
after Molly is done
Just
talking,
ask her if she has evidence or not.
after Molly is done talking,
No,
we can
y'all are
ask
gonna let
Molly
her.
after Molly
Y'all are
is
gonna
done
allow her to lie. No, we're not doing. You're not the king of this world. No. You're not the king of this world.
after Molly is done talking,
I can do
then
that too.
we can ask Molly
I can do
after
that
she's
too.
done talking
No.
for evidence.
No, just
Simple.
no.
There
We're
we
going
go.
to get the
Now that
evidence right off the
Shamos,
bat. We're going to get the evidence right off the fucking bat.
right off the bat after she's done
Where's
talking.
the
Very good.
evidence,
Okay,
Molly?
go on, Molly.
Where's the evidence,
Yeah,
Molly?
finish talking, Molly.
Where's the evidence, Molly? Where's the evidence? We don't want to hear the lies. We don't want to hear the stories. We don't want to hear the he said, she said. Where's the evidence?
So Shamos is just going to keep interrupting. Very good.
Where? No, I'm just saying, where is the evidence?
Yeah, you can ask that after she's done talking.
No. We're asking it now because
There'll
I'm
be
not
no
going to sit here
evidence
and sit
after
through.
she's
I'm
done
not going to sit
talking.
through 10, 20
Yeah.
minutes, an hour, 2 hours worth of slander, and then no evidence ever comes out.
You should
Where's
know
the
about that,
fucking
huh?
evidence? Where's the fucking evidence?
Objection, Your Honor.
Listen, I just want any sensible person. If somebody said something about anyone's character in here that was a sensible person or
Okay,
debater,
very good.
and it was empirical,
Very
where's the
good.
fucking evidence?
Very good. Okay, Molly, go on.
Where's the evidence?
You've also said it before.
Just where's the evidence? Just say that it doesn't exist, and you don't waste our time. Do you have
like
it?
that one lawyer that there's a 30% chance at any time he's just going
I'm
to.
just saying, Pogan, you could understand you could understand why I'm frustrated here, Pogan. You might not like me, Pogan, but if someone did this to you, you would be just as frustrated.
What happened?
Someone's made
Shamos,
a
Molly is
claim.
a credible witness. You're not.
Molly has made a claim.
Actually, Pogan has gone through something
I'm
similar.
trying to explain to Pogan.
No, Pogan has gone through something similar where Godless said that he was suicidal.
Pogan has asked me a question. I'm going to answer him.
So did you hear what I said, Shamos?
What
He
has
has
happened,
gone through
Pogan?
something similar.
What has happened is Molly has claimed in front of everyone in chat that I have sent her a DM before where I was threatening suicide. I'm denying this ever happened. I'm denying this ever. I'm denying this ever happened.
Molly, wait.
Hold on. I'm not done. I'm denying this ever happened, Pogan. Okay. Now I'm asking her, where's the evidence? She says that it happened in the DM. It's still the DM. She still has the DMs. Okay. So I'm just asking her. If you're making an empirical claim, where's the fucking evidence? I'm tired of the he said, she said, Pogan. I just want the evidence, bro. That's all I want. Doesn't that sound sensible?
I went through a very similar situation where Godless accused me of being suicidal and never gave evidence. So, to an extent, I understand how you feel. Molly, do you have any evidence for the claim?
I do not.
It's not anecdotal.
DMs. I do not have the DMs from him any longer.
Do you have any evidence that's not anecdotal?
You also said pretty much the same thing when you had the fight with
No, I'm denying. Molly, me and you have barely spoken DMs. I cut my finger one time, and I sent Molly DMs about my finger. That me and Molly's DMs history is so short. I wish I didn't have all my accounts deleted, because then I could show you. She could show you from her end, because it's not deleted from her end, but it's deleted from mine. I cut my finger once really bad, and I asked her what to do. She basically just told me, what I should do, and then that's all I did. Me and her, I don't go and confide in Molly. I've never sent her a bunch of messages. I'm denying the existence of any of these things. So listen, Pogan has had similar allegations against him. I'm just asking. Listen, I'm just going to reiterate. Pogan has had similar accusations against him, and I'm asking for the evidence. I'm asking for the evidence.
First off,
if you don't have it, then just shut the fuck up.
Need to stop
if you don't have it, then just shut the fuck up. And maybe for once in my life, I can actually have an honest, philosophical conversation.
I need to stop Shamos from over-talking people now.
No, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to just, how much it would be, how much it would improve my well-being and my psyche and everything going on in my real life right now, just to have an actual conversation where it wasn't about he said, she said, meta discussion. Nice to have a conversation right now about philosophy. Or literally just anything. It would do wonders on taking my mind off the bullshit. But the first time I came in here, Pogan, I can't even escape. They just jump straight into the lies and the he said, she said. I have to come in here and just the first thing I do when I come back is I have to hear Molly lie about me with no fucking
Oh
evidence.
my
Why
God, this is
can't I
getting
just
loud.
come
You've been
back and
talking
everyone just shut
nonstop.
their
Okay, here
fucking
we
mouth?
go. We've already
Hey,
pointed
wait,
out this
Shut their
3
wait.
fucking mouth.
times now.
Chill the frick
Can
out,
we-
bro.
Can we-
Minus the yelling, I actually think Shamos is perfectly reasonable in demanding evidence.
I do, but if
I
there's not
agree.
any to be given, then can we just accept that and move
Well,
forward?
Molly is justified
let's-
in.
Well, look,
Molly is hold on. Molly is justified here in unfortunately not having evidence for the claim when she ought to, in virtue of the fact that, again,
Right.
as presented, Discord can prune your DMs.
Okay, but that doesn't resolve anything. So
Wait, but
if
that-
there's no
but that-
resolution,
Horrible
It doesn't even mean that he doesn't
Shamos,
even know
real
that
quick,
that's
Shamos, real quick,
operant.
I promise, real quick, promise.
So
Look,
he
but
doesn't.
that
Go
all
ahead.
it reduced. Yeah, all that. Fine, Molly can't be indicted because Discord pruned her DMs. Whatever, who fucking cares? All that reduces the situation to is a claim is being made that indicts Shamos's character or levies some sort of personality trait to him, and because that claim can't be substantiated, even though it's through no fault of Molly's, then there's no point really making the claim, right? Because of course everybody who in this room is going to expect some sort of substantiation for that statement, and if none,
I
can
agree.
Be provided,
No, a lot of people didn't expect the substantiation. They just bought it.
Well, look.
I
By a
trust
lot
Molly.
of people, by a lot of people, I'm appealing to people that actually have brains, right?
Yeah, that's the minority now.
If they're rational, they should appeal to the evidence and not just her word. Okay? And so the thing is, here's what Pogan's getting
in
to. He's just
competing
getting to the fact that
Oh my god,
if
can
no
this not
one
be
is
the
given
Shamos
any
hour for
evidence,
5
then
seconds?
let's
Yeah,
just
it would be
dismiss
great
it.
if someone would be able to like calm down Shamos for a little bit, so other people.
Yeah, it would be great if y'all didn't lie on me right when I first day game. My grandmother's died. My life is in shambles.
But
Everything's been fucked
It's
up. My
victim
radiator
time
blew up
again.
my truck.
Very
Everything
good.
is literally fucked
Hey,
up. My
Shamos.
girlfriend blew me off
That's
this weekend.
Shamos.
I've been banned for 3 days. The first day I come back to just get my fucking
Shamos.
head together, get my fucking my mind off of
Shamos.
all the shit that's
Listen
happened to
to
me
Mary Jane,
IRL.
then
Shamos.
The
let's
first day that I come
go
back,
forward.
the what I have to deal with is you guys just lying about me right out the
Shamos.
bat. He said, she said, you
Shame.
guys get to come in here,
You've
talk
said
about
this 8
politics. You know how
times.
beautiful it is to talk about
8
politics and
fucking
philosophy every
times.
day? You know how
Shamos.
beautiful it would be if I was able to do that? You know how awesome it would be if I was afforded the opportunity to just come in
8
here and talk
fucking
about
times.
fucking politics or philosophy? I come in here and you guys just lie on
Please,
me
God.
repeatedly and just
Someone
try to
mute
fuck with my head and just
Shamos.
gaslight me. The fucking bullshit. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, you have no evidence for lying.
Are you done? So, Pogan.
Hi.
If you were told competing stories by Molly and Shamos, who would you believe? Neither has evidence.
Oh fuck, man! Look,
You don't
say
have to
Shamos,
assign.
I'm going to find you and I'm going to kill you.
You don't have to assign
this
even
analogy
proposition true or false. You
Wait,
don't
let
have
Pogan
to.
respond.
I have,
Shut
I have
up.
two
Let Pogan respond.
statements.
Go on,
Two
Pogan.
statements. The first statement is, yeah, given my track record with Shamos, I'd probably defer to Molly's judgment.
There we go.
The second statement is
Done. No.
No.
Let him finish.
Thank you for your contribution,
Let
Pogan.
him
You can
finish.
now.
So that means that Molly
let him
can make a bunch of
finish.
unjustified claims
Please
because
let
people have
Pogan
personal
finish.
bias
Guys,
against.
come on! I didn't get
All right, Pogan. Go on, Pogan.
Anyway,
No.
the second statement would be, even though that's the case, that's going to be contingent on past interactions with Shamos on my end that, by my subjective determination, have been completely fucking awful, right?
And do
what
you think
cannot
that the server shares these
Let him
interactions?
finish.
Hold on, I just have one last comment. What cannot be said is that Shamos. I don't know if anyone said this. I'm not trying to accuse anyone. What can't be said is that Shamos is wrong, right? Nobody can accuse Shamos of being incorrect here because there's no evidence being presented for the claim that he expressed in DMs with Molly that he was suicidal. Nor is there any evidence from Shamos's end that it didn't happen either, right?
There is evidence from Shamos's end.
No.
So that makes it even worse.
That's not the
Molly's
case.
side.
Well, let me present it, right? So when Molly said that Shamos had DM'd her this stuff, Shamos said immediately, no, you don't have those DMs, right? At the time, he didn't know that DMs sporadically deleted themselves. So he wouldn't have denied that she had those DMs.
So, do you think that's consistent with Shamos lying?
I don't think that's evidence.
Yeah,
Do you think it's consistent? Do you think it's consistent with Shamos lying that he would claim that?
Oh yeah, it could be a lie, but it would be.
So if
really-
it's the case
Go
that Shamos, if it's the case that Shamos lied, then that would not be evidence for your case.
But then,
And Shamos, as we
Why
all
would
know,
Shamos lie if it was so easy to
why
dig
would
up?
Shamos lie?
Well, hold on.
That's
I'm not
kind of
saying
a
why
tough
would he
question.
lie simpliciter. I'm saying if it was the case that Shamos believed that she did have those DMs and he lied about it, it would take her 3 seconds to prove him wrong and crush him. So it would be foolish to lie about it.
Yeah, but that happens all the time with Shamos.
Wait. Just
Yeah,
real
that
quick.
is true.
Let's be charitable for just 2 seconds. Now, look, as I already said, yes, I don't think Shamos tells the truth very frequently at all. That said, his first question when I sort of announced my presence in the room was, what do you think of this? Because if you were in a situation similar to mine, which you were, you'd be making the same fucking demands, regardless of people's perception of you, right? You'd be demanding the evidence. And he's correct. We can make appeals to how frequently Shamos has been dishonest in the past. We can make all sorts of inferences predicated on his behavior. But at the end of the day, right, Shamos's demand for evidence to substantiate the claim is not unreasonable in the slightest.
You let me so that's not what we're saying is unfortunate, his demand for evidence. What we're saying is that, so here's the track record of the conversation. The claim is made on Molly's part. Shamos demanded evidence. Molly said, unfortunately, I can't, I'm just giving an anecdote. And then there was an entire 30-minute long argument about that finally ended in, it is in fact the case that it is very plausible that Molly does not have the evidence through no fault of her own, just through the fact that Discord can.
No, it's not plausible. In fact, she never even looked. Hold on. What you did is you said it's
time.
I was talking. I was talking.
You showed that it is. You never showed that it's likely that her DMs are gone. You showed that the phenomenon exists.
I think
now he's
Good
trying to
Christian
lead
Boy
into
was
that it's
talking,
likely that the
Shamos. You may
DMs
not
don't
have heard
exist.
that Good Christian Boy was
Well,
talking.
let me ask Christian Boy a question.
I didn't finish.
Well, I mean, you posted a lot of links.
I did. No, hold on. I didn't finish. So
no one's been allowed to finish all night. So stop crying.
It finally concluded with the notion that it is plausible that Molly does not have the evidence through no fault of her own.
We never concluded with that.
Hold on.
We never concluded with that.
You said that.
We concluded that it's possible. Not that it's plausible. It's possible.
Nitpicking at its finest. Go on.
Continuing. So the last 30 minutes have been Shamos repeatedly playing the victim with respect to this. With respect to this, that's it.
I actually think it's plausible.
No one has said it is 100% the case that this even happened. It's basically just been Shamos screaming for an hour.
No, I'm sure it has been. Wait, Shamos,
all this guy. Look, what's going on is Molly made a claim about me confiding in her that I was suicidal, which I've never done. I don't confide in Molly. I said, no, I didn't. I never did that. What's the evidence? She said, I don't have the evidence, and the reason why is because all of your accounts got deleted. My response was, even if my accounts got deleted, it will still be present with it being under a deleted user. It will still be there. Then this guy brought up the fact that he's noticed that some of his PMs are no longer there. They're not all there in their entirety. So now that we know that it's possible that the DM might not be there, that doesn't mean that the DM's not there. We don't know. Molly hasn't checked. No one knows. Molly hasn't even located the deleted user at all. We have no clue. He's just setting the ground for it being possible that it might be deleted. Okay,
well, Molly,
that doesn't mean that's plausible. That doesn't mean that it's plausible. It doesn't mean that Molly's DMs won't be there. In fact, her DMs very well might be there, just in the same way that my alt's DMs are there from a year ago.
You can't demand the evidence from her because she just might not have it, and it's a real possibility.
Well, let's cross that bridge when we get to it. That's all I'm saying.
We've been at that bridge for
she
half
hasn't
an hour.
even looked for it yet. She hasn't even looked for it yet.
Could I ask a question that'll probably clarify much of the issue? Under what circumstances would DMs be unrecoverable? Because I know, if you delete a message,
that's the weird thing.
They're not even sure, Pogan.
Hold on. That's
the
weird thing. Sure. DMs are not. I've looked into this. DMs are not necessarily unrecoverable. They're all archived. The problem is retrieving them from a deleted user is extensively difficult. Essentially, the channels you have to go to retrieve DMs from a deleted user is you have to go through Discord and have their old name and ID. If you don't know that, you're fucked.
Okay,
Shamos.
so wait, but that just reduces the situation.
So it's
to-
effectively irretrievable.
Well, I was going to say the
Well-
entire thing becomes unfalsifiable.
Well, hold on. Are we assuming that it wasn't because, like,
That's
I'm
if-
looking at
that's
I'm
if
looking
that-
at my DMs right now, right? And I've got a couple of deleted users in there. Now, are we assuming that Molly doesn't have like that? You know, on the left hand side, where
No,
you have a list
what's
of
going
deleted-
on, Zach?
Yeah,
is
so
they're just saying
what
that
I would ask Molly is to look through the deleted users that she has in her DMs and see if she can find one that's consistent with Shamos' ult.
Right,
just
because
wanna-
those will all
I
be there.
Because
Right?
kids know that they're deleted.
Should she
That's
have?
why, that's why all of
should
this was
she
just
have
one big
those?
whitewashing attempt. Because
One
we didn't even have to say any of this. We could have just found out if they were deleted or not. And then if she said they weren't there, he could have said, "Oh, the reason why the conversations are picked apart, they're not there in their
but
entirety, is because of this phenomenon."
Seamus, look, even
He's giving her an out. He's giving her an out,
No,
and he did it with
I
the
know. Hey,
specific.
relax, just chill, man. Look, certainly even you can admit that if it's the case the DMs are unrecoverable or it's just exceptionally difficult to get our hands on them, whatever, then the issue is not that somebody's making a claim without evidence. The issue is that any claim made with respect to that conversation in DMs is completely unfalsifiable.
Yes, it would be in that,
including
in that
yours,
case.
Shamos.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
no. I never made a claim.
You
I just said,
claimed that absolutely did not.
I claimed that her claim was false. Yeah, that's a claim.
That just
And so,
reduces
yeah,
to
if
it
it's
not happening.
That's
yeah,
just
if
the
it's
negation
I
of the
agree.
proposition.
I
which is
agree if
itself
it's
a proposition,
unfalsifiable.
which is a claim.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not denying that if
Wait,
it's
so you're changing
unfalsifiable.
to you did make a claim.
So
Okay, good.
if we agree that it's unfalsifiable, then there's literally no point.
But I'm not agreeing to that. I'm just saying if it were the case that applied in the case of those PMs, Pogan, I have PMs from one of my deleted accounts from my alt that go back to 2018. Okay. So
This is
not like
contravening evidence.
No,
in
it's,
any way,
of
shape,
course
or
it's
form.
not. What I'm saying is we don't know whether or not this applies or not. Okay, we don't know whether or not.
Let me ask you a question.
What I'm saying is we don't know whether or not it's unfalsifiable or not.
let me
It
ask
will be unfalsifiable if they're not there.
Conditionalize it.
Right, no, hold on. Let me ask you a question.
Yes, and so it's conditionalized. If they no longer exist, then it's unfalsifiable. We can transfer all those verdicts.
Let me ask you a
If it does exist, then it's incumbent on her to show the fucking evidence.
Shamos, you don't need to yell. Listen, let's suppose it is falsifiable, just for argument's sake. If it is the case that it's unfalsifiable, we can't recover the DMs, or it's too difficult to get them. It's just not reasonably, something we can. At that point, given that supposition, would you agree that the topic should sort of just be shelved? Because at that point, like neither side is going to be able to say that Shamos is, we're not going to be able to say Shamos is correct. We're not going to be able to say Molly is correct. The best we can do is appeal to past interactions and make some sort of inference based on the person's behavior. Right. And that's going to be completely subjective.
Right.
It's a bunch
the problem
of
is
garbage.
that Shamos has like the not
I have
good
one.
character.
I have two on here now. Deleted users. And it says this is the beginning of your direct message, which is really weird because it's an incoming message from someone, but it says deleted user. So I don't understand that.
Do you have any other deleted users that like seem like DMs with Shamos?
Yeah, I have deleted users that go all the way back into 2018.
Yeah, me too.
I have some on here.
Again,
I
this has
also
nothing
have,
to do with time. It has to do with frequencies of DMs.
Well, I mean, look, we could. I mean, theoretically, you could just post some conversations with deleted users, and then Shamos could look at chat and say either "Yeah, that's me" or "No, that's not me."
Well, I would
Well,
know.
surely
I
Molly
would
should
know, but I would know by
you
the
could have saved us all
conversation
the 2
who it
hours
is.
and just not made a bunch of he said, she said claims.
That's
it's like,
true.
You know how nice it would have
It's
been to
not
just come in
Shamos'
here tonight
fault,
and get my mind off my
Casey
IRL
comes
that's been
butt
completely
touch.
destroyed lately. You know how nice it would have been
You
to just
could have
come in
just
for
said
once,
like, well,
Shamos is
and have a
correct here.
conversation that didn't have to do with meta. It would have been
It is
just great
Molly's
to have
fault.
any
Oh,
conversation that had
really?
meta.
Molly, please.
But this is what they do. I would get welcomed back with a bunch of lies, no evidence for the truth of the lies.
Molly,
Actually,
please.
Actually, Togen, I don't think you would have the same reaction that
Just
Shamos does.
my nerves are on edge because of this discussion. It just shows.
No,
how
I think what you would say
fucking.
is something like,
It just shows how much
you
of a
can appeal
cunt
to my
Molly
character
really is.
and whether I would lie about
Welcome
these
back.
things, right?
I know your
That's-
life's in
'cause that's my
shambles. I know
imagine
you would love
respond.
to get on Discord so that you can not have to think about
what I
how
would
bad your
probably
life
say
is.
is
And
that
then I
you're gonna
come
have
on
to
here and tell a bunch of lies
show where I
about him,
lied in the
have no
past.
proof for anything he fucking
All
said.
right.
Yeah,
It just
that's
shows how
equivalent
much
to
of a
saying, like,
fucking
look at my
joke all
character,
this
I think.
really is.
All right.
You guys need
Shamos,
That's different from what Shamos said.
There's nowhere else to go from here. Can we agree that there's nothing else
Yeah,
to be
this should have
shown?
never been brought up.
Okay.
None of these he said, she said conversations should ever be.
I actually wait, but I actually agree with him in his position that it shouldn't have been brought up.
I
think. Well, hold on. Let me explain why. I think Molly is a great person. I fucking despise Shamos, but it doesn't mean I would side against him if he was making a legitimately plausible.
Well, you know why it was brought up, right?
I can imagine.
Yeah, we're talking about yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say real quick, the entire idea of bringing up something about somebody, especially a serious claim like Shamos has confided in me in the past that he's been suicidal, without substantiation or any sort of evidence whatsoever, is stupid.
No,
to say
it's
that with
not,
no backing is
because
stupid.
there's a reason.
Well, yeah, there's
There is a reason, and I'm going to explain it to you. Because Shamos was pissed. Hang on, I got to.
Well, while
It's
you're
going to be more anecdote to supply or anecdote. More anecdote to lean on.
We have internet assassins on Molly's connection.
Okay.
Over.
Okay, no. Okay, so
Breaker 5.
Shamos got pissed because
Take a shot.
he had sent me the DM, with his nan and all that, saying, "Oh, I want back in, and my life is all miserable." And I said, "Shamos, it's not going to work this time. I'm not falling for it."
I don't
said,
think
"No."
it's.
So, okay, let me fucking finish. So he was saying, "Yeah, you're a cold, heartless bitch." And I said, "Why is that, Shamos?" I said, "Because you in the past had sent me a DM telling me about being on the boat, miserable and all that shit. Then when I tried to talk to you about in voice, what he said is, that was all bullshit. I was just lying to get your sympathy." And I said, "So when you said,
what
no,
your words
wait,
were,
I
you
said,
claimed that you were going,
Shamos, do you have an inability to let people finish talking?
threatened
Is that it?
suicide.
What's
I just
amazing?
wanted to say.
What's
I just wanted to say the
amazing?
words. She's sugarcoating it. Say what you
What's
fucking
amazing?
said. You said that I threatened suicide to you in a
I
DM,
want to just
Molly.
turn Shamos a little bit down so you could hear
okay,
the brain
so
think.
I was actually going. So he had sent me a DM. He says, "Molly, I don't have anything. My life is shit. My boat's a piece of shit. It's falling apart.
Never
The
happened.
only
This is a
thing that I
lie.
had left was the only thing that I have left to hang on to was Discord, and now that's gone. I have nothing to live for. I'm
This is
sitting
a
in this
lie.
boat, suicidal, and I need, can you talk to them
More
to get me
lies.
back into the server?" So I had mentioned that to him, and he said, "No, what it's funny is that you said that's a lie. But when I asked you,
Look, where's the evidence? Look, we're back.
excuse
We're
me,
back to
if
more
let me,
anecdote to
you
shore up
guys
the
need to let me
anecdote. You see
finish.
what I told you?
You need to let me finish.
What I predicted is
Okay,
exactly what
you
happened.
need
She's
to
supplying
let me
more
finish.
anecdote
You
to
need
I
back
would
up
you
the
need
pay
to
for a
let me
prediction.
finish. You need to let me
Shamos being
finish.
quiet.
No one
What
would
I
ever.
found
You guys would
interesting
never
about this,
allow this to
okay,
happen versus you.
what
Pogan, you
I
would never
found
allow
it,
this.
okay, come on, you guys.
The Pokemon let people
What I
talk.
found interesting
fair,
is that
I am getting
stop,
I'm getting
Hogan,
screamed
stop
at
it.
right now. See, I'm
Okay,
trying to respond.
okay, stop. Okay, but don't respond then.
Do
So when
you
this
have
was first
evidence or
brought up,
not?
Don't respond,
what he
Pogan.
said,
Do you have
fucking
evidence or
hell.
not?
Shut the
Stop
fuck up,
wasting our
Pogan.
time with more anecdotes.
Shut up, Hogan. Stop saying
Do you
that you're
have
dictating.
evidence
Just
or
shut
not,
up.
Molly?
Okay,
If
you
you
guys are
don't,
gonna
we
let him
don't
do
want to
this.
hear any more anecdotes.
Shamos, if someone doesn't have evidence, doesn't mean they're lying. FYI, so you shouldn't accuse Molly.
No
of lying.
one said that. It's just no one's. It's incumbent on no rational person
Wait, no,
to
you
believe
said that
this.
she's lying multiple times.
To be fair, wait. To
And
be
you
fair,
don't
He
have a
didn't. He
reason.
didn't make that. He didn't make that as a conclusion of Molly's
And you
actions. That would
don't
be from
have
his
a reason to believe
experience.
that she's lying.
Well,
Yeah,
look,
why-
let's ignore the lying part just for a second. It is true that if somebody, I mean, it is Shamos, but let's ignore that. If somebody came in here and made an accusation towards somebody else, right? It's part of the course in this community to demand evidence. Like, nobody takes issue with the demand for evidence
Wait,
itself.
why?
Not
It's
anymore.
the demand for, hold
Can
on.
you shut the fuck up? No,
Hello,
because what you did
FBI.
now, no, what you did was you interrupted me to go on your fucking tangent. So I'm going to repeat what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah, but
So
Molly,
when
you
this
don't
was
have
first,
any
oh
evidence.
God,
You're just
help
gonna
me,
bullshit us.
fucking
You're
help.
just gonna make up more lies.
Why
We get
aren't
it.
the
You don't
mods
have any
calming
evidence.
down
I'm just
Shamos?
saying what you're gonna say means
Wouldn't it be
nothing.
great
Let
if the
Pogan
mods
finish
calm
because
down
what you're gonna
Shamos?
say ultimately means nothing. It's gonna fall
No.
victim to the same criticism Pogan rendered. You still don't have any evidence. Why the fuck? Everything you just said doesn't have any evidence. So just Fucking let Pogan finish what he had to say.
No,
because
I don't
you're
want
gonna
to hear. I don't know. No, I don't know. No, Pogan.
Shamos has been reduced to relying on Pogan.
Give no
Okay.
more.
Nice
Fuck
one.
And no one wants to hear you
Wow.
supply
I wanna
another
say
anecdote.
Wow, Luke, why would you
Go
do so,
ahead,
folks?
JJ.
And JJ, comment? No, I'm just
Hi.
kidding.
Let's just change
How
the
dare you,
subject.
Pogan?
Well, everybody
Let's
was
just
saying
change the
something. I just
subject because it's been
A
ridiculous.
great way to use the floor,
Can
JJ.
we just change the subject, please? Snugs, can someone just do me the courtesy of let's just changing the subject?
I
'Cause
have.
my
can I
my
finish my
psyche
statement?
can't handle
Do you have
this
any
anymore.
evidence of the need to
No, I'm
change the
just saying my
subject?
psyche can't handle this anymore. I can't discuss he said, she said lies for another.
If
I can't
anybody
do it.
should
Shamos, are
be,
you
For
implying
my
that you're going to
mental
kill
stability,
yourself
over
if
can
we
we
don't
please
change the
move
subject?
away from the he said, she said? Can we please move away? Please.
need to be humble. Shamos, do you want to talk about your situation right now? If people
No,
are willing to
what I
be
want to
compassionate.
what I want to talk about is a complete subject change. I don't want to talk about any more meta or any more he said, she said.
If
I would
I
like
am
to have
not allowed to
conversation
finish,
about
I'm gonna smash
politics,
my balls with a toilet
philosophy,
seat.
anything.
Nobody
I'm
cares.
not. I do no longer want to defend myself against
Please interrupt
baseless,
Pogan.
unjustified lies. Okay, please.
Oh, who's telling lies?
On chat.
No.
Oh,
My comment.
Moving on. Man. Let's just move on, please. God, please.
You guys heard of Akil Bilgarami?
Yes.
I hate Pogan.
Last thing I'll
I
say is
only-
maybe Molly could take note of this.
Very good, Shamos.
Don't
Very
bring
good.
up the lies in the future. Don't bring up the he said, she said. Molly,
People of lying.
so
So now
you can go a whole 48 hours
I need-
without
Come
bringing
on,
up the he
please. This
Yeah,
cacophony.
Can you do that,
Just
Molly?
drop it,
Can you go
Shamos.
a whole 48
Just
hours
drop
without
it.
bringing up he said, she said? Can you do that, Molly? 48 hours. This is the Molly challenge. You are challenged for 48 hours to not speak about he said, she said, okay? Can you do it?
Fuck you, Shamos. Shut up, Pogan. Fuck
It's all
you,
she ever wants to
Shamos.
talk about. She can't talk about politics. She can't talk about philosophy. All she can talk about is meta, and he said, she said. That's all she can talk about, and she wants to bring it right back there because she can't engage on politics. She can't engage in philosophy. She's one of the most ignorant. She's one of the most ignorant, unread people in politics and philosophy that you ever met. She knows nothing about politics. She knows nothing about philosophy. She knows nothing about shit.
It's
All
incel
she
time
can
now.
do is fucking make up a bunch of lies about what people told her in private.
Yeah. What are you telling me in private?
I'm saying, you know how wonderful it would be if we could just have non-meta discussions.
You know how wonderful it'd be if you weren't here?
Shamos, have you considered
Molly
getting
ever
leave?
logged
Shamos
into
is correct
Discord
here.
today?
That was a
Oh yeah, it's gamer time.
Shamos complaining about
amazing
meta
it
is
would have been
meta.
if we never had to go through that 2 hours of bullshit right there. You know how awesome it would have been if Molly never logged into Discord today?
Yeah, occasionally a little meta is nice.
All of the problems
We just
in
talked for
agree.
2
life
hours
are in
about a
virtue of
claim
women.
that
We
Molly has
understand.
no evidence for. We just talked for 2 hours about a claim Molly has no evidence for. And guess what? It was all about he said, she
I
said,
can't
bullshit
wait for
meta
this
drama.
recording to come out. We
We
want to
need
be topic and
Shamos
then
lives in
immediately-
society. I think that's what we
Shamos
need to
brings
do.
this upon himself. Like someone in his position could just
He's
be like, "You have
rising
no
up.
evidence," and then
I'm
just
gonna
can
say
sit
the
on that
N-word.
conclusion.
Suicide by mods.
What else do you want to talk about, Shamos?
No, and then the worst part about it is you guys come in here, consistently abuse me, and then I'm the one that gets frustrated, then says a banned word.
thought you had the
I thought you were
You're
done.
forced me to say the N word.
I would just honestly, I would honestly just like to come in here for, I would honestly just like to come in here for an escape, okay, and just talk about anything that
Escaped
didn't
your
have to
way
do
right
with,
into hell, buddy.
didn't have to do with meta and didn't have to do with a bunch of he said, she said drama. You know,
You're the one
talk
talking about meta right
philosophy,
now.
talk about politics, talk about anything like that. You know, that'd be
Shamos could
great.
effectively hold the room hostage by threatening.
No, I'm just saying that would be great to be able to talk about something like that. You know, my
Wait,
grandma
what is
just recently
Tasteless
died.
trying to say
My
here?
truck's super fucked up.
Are you
I have a
kidding me,
bunch of money.
JJ?
I have a bunch
Why
of
would you
money
do that?
problems. My girlfriend
Well,
blew
at
me
this
up
point,
weekend.
at this
Yeah,
point,
it's
Tasteless
not
might be a
good.
better choice.
It's not
than
good.
Shamos
I'm
at
tired.
least
You
until
know,
this
I
point.
would
Let's talk
love
about
to
your
come here and
Yeah,
get my
Shane,
mind off
I
of it.
love you, man, but I don't want to hear about all the problems and stuff. I mean, love to have a real discussion. And
Let's go to
That's what I'm
tasteless.
telling you. What I'm telling you is I don't want to even think about the problems. I would
Well,
just
then
like to
let's
get my
move
mind
on.
off of it.
Let's
with a
not
little
talk
discussion.
about them.
But when I
Okay.
came in here, the first thing that I had to
Stop
hear
fucking
was
I believe
Molly
it.
go
about
through
I
her
believe it.
PMs and try to show people how I was attempting to manipulate
Yeah,
her.
we
And
know
then
what
she-
happened.
And then she claimed that I said I was going to kill myself to her in PMs.
Yes,
This is a
Molly.
fucking lie. And that's
Shamos is
what
very
I've
good
had
at
to deal
moving
with
on.
What
my
is the
entire time
proprietary
back.
definition?
And
of moving I don't get it.
of a bunch of people interrupting me and just overall abusing me.
Let us.
You're the only person who doesn't want to move on now, Shamos. Can we
Yeah,
move
it's
on,
actually
please,
hilarious
to
now.
tasteless?
No. What I'm trying to do is I would love to spend about 15 minutes
Tasteless,
really
please talk about the
emphasizing this
demons
point.
again.
Really
Talk about Trump
emphasizing
tasteless,
that.
please.
Which, if you'd like an
I
answer,
don't think it
bicycle.
needs any more
Maybe-
emphasis,
The
though.
reason why I'm trying to
Maybe-
add
Fuck
the
up,
reason
Shamos.
why I'm trying to
Bicycle,
add
tell him
just
to shut up.
the
Bicycle,
reason
tell him to
why
shut
I'm
up,
trying
please.
to add a tiny bit of emphasis here to this point
All right,
is
Shamos,
so that
Shamos,
maybe this
Bicycle,
won't
why?
happen in the
Shamos,
future.
Nobody
Shamos.
cares.
Shamos.
Nobody
Hold on, guys,
cares.
so that maybe this won't
Shamos,
happen
we
in the future.
understand.
Shamos, I know
There's
what
going
you're
to be a
doing.
good
I
part of
get
the
it.
clip
I
where
get
it's just
it.
a bunch of
Trying
people
to do is I'm trying
talking
to
shit.
spend about 10 minutes here to
I
emphasize.
don't think you
so
get
that
it,
this
because
won't
if you
happen
got it,
again.
you'd
Maybe
shut
next
up.
time. Maybe next
Nobody
time when Molly
cares.
starts off with the
Nobody
lies.
cares.
Maybe next time. Maybe next
Maybe-
time when she starts off with the lies and the he said, she said, you guys can go, hey,
There was
maybe we
half a
shouldn't do
moment of
this.
silence there, and I
That's
think
what I'm
Okay,
trying
we
to
have a
say.
new
Fine,
person.
Shamos is heard.
Okay.
Let's
Nobody
welcome a new
Shamos?
member to the chat.
Maybe
Someone
we
named
could take.
Hyperoak.
He's not even
Hyperoak?
in voice, dude. It's
Not
like,
even in voice, X. What's wrong with you?
Who?
You guys sound just
Maybe-
like politics.
Oh.
Maybe we can give Shamos 5 minutes to get the sand out of his
No,
pussy, and then
he's
he
a
can come
hat.
back and talk
No.
to us.
No,
Oh, yeah,
maybe
I
we
agree.
can give
I agree with that.
one of the
Oh,
only
man.
females in this room a few moments to not bring up he said, she said drama and
You
remind
just
her that
brought
we're
it up for half
in a
an hour.
philosophy and politics debate server. We're not in Jerry Springer
Emails.
drama
Emails,
server,
sorry. I thought
okay?
you said emails. Hillary, I have information that will lead to the arrest of
Hogan,
Hillary.
stop shitting the place up like politics.
Where
I
did
know
the
you want to be.
Palpatine
I
voice
know
come
you
from?
finally want to get all the praise and all the laughter, and you want to be the center of attention, have everyone laughing at you and thinking you're the great guy. Hogan, you don't have to be.
All right, I think it's time to leave Gus.
You don't have to
After
shit the
he
whole place up
defended
like
you,
fucking
Shamos,
politics.
you're a piece
man.
of shit.
Stop the
Shamos,
memer. Stop
Shamos,
the
you know what?
voices.
Shamos, you know what? You're right on
Just
that.
be normal tonight. Just be fucking normal for tonight.
Shamos, you know what? You're right. Tasteless comment.
He said he can't talk right now.
No. Listen, I just
Oh,
want to
hey.
Stop shitting the
There
place
we
up
go.
with
Good
your
job.
dumb little
Good
voices.
job.
I just wanted to say
I
that
wish
Shamos is
you were more popular in high school, Pogan. I really do.
Tasteless, what were you referring to when you tagged me? I'm not
I
sure.
wish you got laid more. I wish the hot girls gave you more attention in high school, Pogan. I really do.
I'm trying to get an answer out of Tasteless here.
JJ,
Well, I
have
just
you
wanted to
gotten
say
that
really
flashlight
quick
yet?
Yeah, I'm asking
Shamos is
Tasteless
correct.
what he's
But
talking about.
Shamos is correct about this, and it is the fault of the room, right? Not to allow this to happen. It wasn't his fault. This could have been avoided if Molly would just be honest and say, "No, I don't have the evidence," and we could have.
I did, you fucking muppet. I did say that, you fucking
So
idiot,
it
from
is
the
not
beginning.
Shamus's fault, and people are
Tasteless,
just
you
motivated
fucking
against
muppet, you ESL. I
don't
did say
insult
from
me.
the beginning.
That's racist.
Molly, please
ESL?
don't fucking insult me.
That's a very veiled way to call him, like.
Wait, what is ESL? Is that racist?
English
Like
second
second
language.
I'm not really.
language.
Oh yeah, that's what it means. Yeah.
yeah, Molly. Okay,
Except for
so
the fact
why
that
did things
Tasteless-
took so
Brown
long?
except
people,
for the
am
fact
I
that
right?
Tasteless speaks fluent English.
Yeah, if you call that fluent, yeah.
Yeah,
it
but
is.
Well, if
imagine,
excuse me,
he is
because
fluent in
had
English.
if Tasteless would have been
Molly, I'm
fluent
gonna
in
let you
English,
finish,
then
but I need to get this
he
out real
okay,
quick.
good.
Here we go.
Tasteless, if you would have been fucking fluent in English and been paying attention, you would have known that from the very beginning. I said to him, I no longer have the DMs. It's the first thing I said when he asked.
So you
had
should
you
have
fucking been
retracted
paying
your
attention,
statement.
I'm not retracting a statement. I
Well,
said I
that's your
don't
problem.
have
That's where your
the
fault
DMs. No,
is.
you know
Now
what
you're
it is?
accusing
It's
him
your
of not
fucking
paying
No,
fault.
you don't have
attention.
to retract a
Oh,
statement. You
let's
just, you
all
just
just
can't
talk.
levy it
accusing
against
him of,
somebody.
now she's accusing
That's the
him of
best
not
way.
paying attention, Orson. She's accusing him of being English as a second language, but now she's saying he wasn't paying attention.
Well,
If
it's
you're
one or the
accusing him of
other.
it being,
Fuck.
if
One
you're
or the
accusing it have to
other.
do with it, if you're
One
accusing him of
or
it
the
having to do
other.
with English being his
Right.
second language, then it would have to do with meaning. He doesn't understand the meaning of words, not him not paying attention. See, they can't even
One or
levy a
the
consistent
other.
criticism. They can't. That's how stupid they are. They can't even level a consistent criticism of somebody.
I want to know why, through through like the entire spiel you gave where I was defending you and saying, yeah, she probably should have substantiated her claims, you then went on to say, stop, be serious. I thought I was serious.
For like 5 minutes ago, you were shitting up the place like blue politics. You were like doing your dumb little elf voice, your stupid little you just literally
Wait, that's
thought
what
this
you
was
think
like
it
comedy.
is?
You
Elf?
literally thought this shit was comedy hour. I had to like snap you out of it. Like Pogan,
It's
you're
pretty
shitting
funny.
the place. You're shitting the place up. Like I really wish. I know that like one of your fantasies is to be like sitting at the
Pogan
lunch
was
table with
reasonable and reason was
Oh
everybody
yeah,
told.
looking at
Orson
you,
decided he had
everybody
something to say.
laughing, all the girls wanting you. You want to have you want to like crystallize those moments within your life. Don't try to
turn
seek them
into
out
like
here.
a therapy
Don't try
session.
to seek them out here. You're doing well. You just that last 5 minutes we could have done without a little fucking politics shitting the
Shamos,
place
it just
up.
seems like what you're complaining. Look, I mean, it seems like I was reasonable when it was necessary. Like when reason was called
No.
for.
We're trying to. I don't, Pogan. I don't do any
Which
of
is
that
my
shit,
point.
ever. I've never respected it. I know that some other people might be like, "Hey, bro, it was kind of funny, like dabs or whatever, like cool, man, fist bump." I don't do that shit. I don't think it was funny. I would love to. I would spend my time. My time's better spent other places than listening to your dumb little meme shit. Yeah, I could go to Blue Politics. I could go to Blue Politics and catch my fill of
No,
that.
he doesn't
that kind of-
actually mean that. Like, he actually wants to stay
Facts. The
here.
reason why and the reason why I singled you out is because you're the only recognizable voice out of the other 4 people that were doing it. So there were like 3 or 4 other people
Socrates,
that
right?
were and they were shitting it up
Oh, so he wasn't the only recognizable voice.
they were shitting it up just as bad. So it wasn't you. I'm just saying, like, guys, for like a good solid few minutes there, it was just a bunch of you memeing over top of each
Well,
other.
I mean,
It just
to be
sounded like
fair, in such
it
a
was like a
situation where we're
cacophony
all
of fucking
laughing,
retarded memeing.
well, here's something reasonable. In such a situation where everybody except like one person is laughing about something, which is more plausible? The one person being correct that's unfunny, or the other people being correct that it's funny? Probably
Well,
the
look,
latter,
I don't
right?
think there's a fact of the matter.
Oh, fuck.
Right. It's just a subjective claim.
Yeah,
Of course, there's no
all
fact
I'm
of the
asking,
matter. I'm asking you
all
to
I'm
make an
asking,
inference.
So when Shamos says it wasn't
No.
funny,
What I'm
all he's
saying, your
saying is,
statement
I
seemed to
disliked
presuppose
that.
there was a
Boo!
fact of the matter. Like, oh, if you think most people were reacting this way, and it was funny, and one of the words, what do you think? It's more likely that it was funny, or more likely that there's not a fact of the matter. And so, like, that question doesn't have an answer in the
It's
way
an
that you
inductive
think.
inference. I'm not making a deductive argument.
Oh fuck.
Wait,
No.
Shamos, when
It's
you said
either
what
there's
he
a
did
fact
wasn't
of the
funny,
matter
what
that
did you mean if there's no fact of the matter?
that I don't think that humor is some objective thing.
That's agreed upon.
No, wait. So
Okay.
if there's
So
no
when
fact
you-
of the matter, and
so
when you
how-
said
so if-
Pogan's
if a
shtick
bunch
wasn't
of
funny,
people-
what did you mean?
If a bunch of people are laughing and another isn't, is that more evidence that it really was funny? No, there's no such thing as really was funny.
So why did you say what he did wasn't funny?
But that's just assuming that I was making a deductive argument again. I'll agree right now. The conclusion was
No, it has
probabilistic
nothing
in nature.
about inductive or deductive. It just has to do with subjective and objective.
Nobody in this room disagrees that humor is subjective. What's your point?
Okay, so what is it more evidence for then?
The fact that it was something people generally found to be funny.
Yeah, you can appeal to intersubjective agreement.
Look, that's
what
just
that word
circular.
means.
That's just circular.
Right, you might as well just make the claim.
No, he's saying that most people laughed, and therefore we're concluding that most people thought it was funny. That's just circular. That analysis.
It's redundant.
No, it's not.
That analysis
because if
is
the claim
circular.
was most people find X funny, and then nobody laughed at X, that's evidence against most people finding it funny.
Aha.
No, it wasn't it wasn't contested that most people found it funny. Shamos accepted.
Aha.
Yeah,
Did he?
of course
Why'd you
I'm
say
not
it wasn't
contesting
funny?
that most people found it funny.
Yeah,
I'm
Pogan,
just
get Shamos.
contesting
I love
that
it.
shows
Wait,
evidence
but
that
then
it really
what was the value in pointing out that he didn't find it funny then?
It's when you said you were trying to float some inference like most people laughed, one person didn't, therefore that it's likely that it was funny. And what I was saying is, it seemed like
if you mean like it's more likely that it's
no. What I'm saying, it seems like that presupposes objectivity. If what you just mean is more people laugh because
No, it
more
doesn't.
people laugh,
Wait, but that's
just
a straw
a
man
circular analysis.
That would be a straw man then.
Oh fuck. Shamos is being fallacious. Oh fuck, man.
I mean, we pretty succinctly just explained what the argument actually was. So I don't understand the confusion, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of
Which
boring.
argument?
Oh fuck. Pogan just smashed Shamos. Nice. Oh fuck, man.
So he wins. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. Whatever you think you're doing, just stop doing that.
Oh fuck,
It's just too much. I can't take it.
Explain to me what you don't understand.
Hogan has deafened.
Hogan
I
is
don't know what he was
concrete.
talking about, and it seemed boring, which is why I wasn't listening really.
No, I mean,
Probably
all
a
I'm
good
trying to say is he said something like, "Look, everyone laughed except for you. That's evidence that it's funny." And what I meant by that's not evidence that it's objectively funny. I think that, and we all seem to agree that yeah, you're right about that. And if all you meant that it's subjectively funny, it just turns out that he's saying something like, "More people laughed, therefore more people laughed," or something like that. You know, it's like it just becomes some type of circular analysis that no one would deny. You know what I mean? So all that's just retarded. That whole exchange.
Yeah, I
When you
don't even know
say- when
why
you
that was even a
said
discussion.
it
I
wasn't
don't think
funny.
I'm just
All
challenging
you
the
meant to
notion
say
that
is
like,
that you
oh,
have a negative
everybody
feeling
laughed,
about
so
Hogan.
therefore it must have really been funny. No, that's bullshit. That inference
It
is
would be
bullshit.
okay if you just like bit the bullet on objectivity. Just say, yeah, I'm trying to
Well,
like appeal.
no. So
That would be
here's what
dumb.
Hogan could say.
Why would it be dumb?
Here's what Hogan could say.
Why would he
Hogan
bite the
could
bullet
say,
on that?
most people found
That's
it
what
funny.
his inference
Here's the
leads
evidence.
to.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Hogan could claim.
Yeah, but
Hogan
I
could
wouldn't
claim-
deny that most people found it funny.
So Hogan could claim that most people found it funny. Here's the evidence. Most people laughed.
Yeah, but I'm not. No one would deny that. You think I would deny that?
I mean, you said it wasn't funny.
Yeah, but I didn't deny.
Oh fuck, man.
I didn't deny that most people laughed.
So when you
wouldn't
mean to
deny
say it wasn't funny, all you meant to say is I personally don't like it, and I'm in the minority.
Frowny face. Yep.
Yeah,
Frowny.
that's what I told. I don't think
Yeah, I
humor.
don't find that funny.
So
Yeah,
why is
that
it meaningful to say frowny face in this conversation?
counts.
Orson is autistic.
Look, all he was saying is
Let's not be ableist.
a bunch of subjective people thought it was subjectively funny. Therefore, that's evidence that they subjectively thought it were funny. It's just like it just shows you that it turns his whole statement into something that's basically vacuous.
But it's not a tautology. It's it's a claim that most people found it funny. There's evidence for the claim. Most people laughed.
Yes, I agree. It's not a tautology. I agree.
But
that
that's
it's
what
not
it would
a
mean to
tautology.
be circular.
That's what it would mean to be vacuous.
No, because he actually said most people found it funny, therefore it's funny. And then it reduced to most people found it funny, therefore most people found it funny, which is circular.
Well, it seems like Pogan presumed that when Shamos said it's not funny, he took Shamos to mean most people didn't like that. You shouldn't have said it.
I'm back. I was.
But that's not the case.
Yeah, but that's not. That's obviously not. Look, I mean, that's obviously something I wouldn't deny.
I just want to clarify before I left. Did we resolve the thing with the laughter and the funniness? Yes.
We're still
guys?
talking.
We're showing how it just reduces down to something basically just nonsensical.
But it doesn't. It's been demonstrated numerous times that it's not a vacuous claim.
Yes, I agree that it's not vacuous. I
But
agree
you kept
that
saying it's vacuous.
No. I said
yes, you did.
I said
you
it's
claimed
seemingly
multiple times that
vacuous.
it was
It's-
vacuous.
no,
Can I get the room to
it's
corroborate
not
that?
vacuous. It's not
Okay.
vacuous.
That's good.
But that's not. I'm not going back on anything that I said. I said seemingly vacuous. So what? All he was saying.
Seemingly vacuous. Okay.
Yeah. The only difference is I agree that
Seemingly retarded.
someone could laugh.
Ableism.
It not necessarily.
Sorry, seemingly stupid.
See,
Yeah,
y'all
come
going
on. I
back
don't
to
think
the,
that
y'all
was
going back to the
ableism.
memeing. Y'all going back to the memeing.
Yeah.
I do respect Socrates, so I'll try not to like.
What I'm saying.
I
all I'm
genuinely
saying is
appreciate
no
that.
one has disagreed with anybody. We all seem to
Respect
agree.
Socrates, not disabled people.
Look, we all seem to agree. Hogan saying if Hogan's saying
differently
most,
abled.
if Hogan's claim
very
was
good.
merely reduces down to most people laughed, therefore most people thought it was funny. Hogan, do you think I would deny that inference?
Repeat the claim. Sorry. Hello.
Your claim reduces down to most people laughed, therefore most people thought it was funny. You think I would deny that inference?
I don't really know, honestly.
You don't. What?
Well, I think there is a track record of behavior where you miss
That's
a point in a
mind-blowing.
claim.
It's the mind blowing, the dishonesty, isn't it, Orson?
That's dishonest.
To say what you just said there, that's dishonest.
Situation. Okay, well, let me ask you this: you don't think there have been conversations between the two of us where you've misunderstood my claim?
What does that have to do with what does that have to do with I just asked you?
Well, I mean, presumably when you're accusing me of being dishonest, you're trying to say that like I'm making some character assassination based on behavior that you haven't exhibited.
No, that was predicated on confusion. You don't think I was confused when I asked you that, did you? So how does it apply?
I think it's possible.
Yeah, of course it's possible. You think it's likely that I'm confused?
Well, I think the evidence would be consistent with the hypothesis.
Look, when you said Shamos, most people laughed, and you didn't laugh, and all you meant to say by that is most people laughed, therefore most people thought it was funny. We agree that that's a subjective notion, right? Now, do you agree that you think I would deny that? That of course most people laughed. I was one of the only people that didn't laugh, and they laughed in virtue of the fact that they thought that it was funny. You think I would deny that?
Well, I mean, there could be response.
And you're over here just
Was that a
just
question?
be honest and be like, of course you wouldn't deny. Just be honest. Of course you wouldn't deny that. It's a rhetorical question. It's a rhetorical question. One in which you don't have
to use more nuance.
It's a rhetorical question in which
maybe you should preface it, Shamos, by saying this is going to be a rhetorical question.
The problem is if Pogan says that Shamos would deny the inference, if Shamos would deny the inference, then it's almost like saying Shamos doesn't think that someone laughs, they find it funny.
Instead of assuming okay, thank you. Look, if he's like if somebody's trying to float the idea that that's so ridiculous that somebody would disagree, like we've agreed it's not vacuous, so presumably somebody could give a response along the lines of, well, they couldn't. It's not necessarily the case that they were laughing because they found it funny. They could have been laughing for social reasons, right? They could have been laughing to fit in and seem like part of the in crowd. Something fucking stupid. But the point is that somebody could offer that as a response.
Yeah, I agree. No one's denying that.
I was still speaking when you were talking, random guy.
No one's denying that someone could offer that as a response. The thing is I was wondering if you would think that I would deny an inference such as this.
But I already answered that question.
And you said, yeah, I think you might.
All I said was that it was possible. And then you asked me, do you think it's
plausible? Do you think that was likely given the discourse? Okay? You said something like this. Shamos, look, dude, everyone laughed except for you. Therefore, it must have been funny. But what you meant is not that there's some objective notion of funny, and then that's given evidence that objective notion of funny exists because more people laughed. What you're saying, something like this, is more people laughed, and that's evidence that they thought it was funny. And that's just something that's basically vacuous, right? It's not vacuous, right? Because it's not vacuous. Yes, that's why I said basically vacuous. That's why I'm not saying vacuous implicator.
What does basically vacuous mean?
I'm trying to explain to you right now. I'm trying to explain to you right now.
Doesn't basically vacuous mean vacuous simpliciter?
Yes.
You're basically racist, but you're not racist. Like,
fuck, man.
Look, I'm trying to explain to you. I'm trying to explain to you guys. Of course it's not vacuous.
Okay.
Of course it's not vacuous, okay? Because someone could, of course, laugh when they didn't think it was funny. Laughing doesn't necessitate that you think it's funny, okay? Correct. And if it was, it would be vacuous. What I said is it's basically vacuous. And what I meant by that is it's such a silly notion that no one seriously would deny that. Okay, in the general instance, I didn't think that you guys felt pressured or anything like that. I genuinely thought you were laughing. Genuinely,
is that a claim we're supposed to just accept?
And what's that?
The claim that nobody would argue against that? Are we just supposed to grant that?
Oh fuck.
Yeah, that's what when I say claims that no one would argue against, you should accept. Yeah.
Well, I'm denying that it's something nobody would argue against, given that you argued against it.
What do you hold on? I think you're confused in the dialogue. What do you think that I'm confused about? That I would argue
Socrates' fucks become increasingly sexual.
No, I'm just saying, like, it seems like the claim that nobody would argue against it is without merit. That's what I'm suggesting.
Nobody would argue against what? What specific proposition?
No more, please.
I lost my way, Pogan. I lost my way. Nobody would argue against what proposition?
The fact that people laughed is evidence for it being funny or something.
Yeah. Given the fact that I don't think other things are at play, like I don't think
What
there's some
I'm
power.
asking is why you think it's the case that nobody would argue against that claim.
Well, I'm
Pogan's given
saying
examples of why it
because
would be.
most obvious.
Well, can I just clarify before you answer? Because I gave an example, as Orson just said, of somebody arguing against that claim, and probably being able to justify their position.
All I'm saying is that it seemed to me pretty obvious that you guys were genuinely laughing because you thought it was funny. And it wasn't because I know that you guys could laugh for other reasons, but I didn't think any of those social dynamics were in
So
play.
if the claim is just a seeming, then I guess there's no problem. As long as you're saying it just seemed to be the case rather than it was the case, that's fine. It just seemed like it just when you say
I want to go back. I want to go back to what was under.
Hold on. When you say nobody would argue against that, it just that sounds like something significantly stronger.
It doesn't have to be seeming. We could make it stronger than seemings, right? Like for example, we could say that there's certain type of inferences going to be in play if people are being pressured. Like people will give off certain facial cues of being pressured, or they might act in a certain way, a bit hesitant, act a bit hesitant, etc. I'm not saying that all of these are going to be operant inside the voice channel. I'm just saying
that's like Evo psych stuff, though. You're presupposing some framework for those behaviors.
All right. Hello.
What, Shamos? Why don't you say
the term Evo psych garbage?
It's not Evo psych. It's just regular psychology. It's not Evo psych.
Evo psych. Look at my titties. Whatever.
Why doesn't
Evo psych is saying
Jesus.
evolutionary psychology is saying that some psychological feature is a product of evolution.
I know what it is.
So you just misspoke. I was just saying it's just a regular psychological.
Okay, yeah, stop being an asshole.
Shamos, why don't you just say that there was no reason to make the inference that people were just like...
Yeah, that's what I meant. What I'm saying is it doesn't have to do with more than seemings. There's reasons, right? And I didn't think that any of those reasons were operant. I didn't think any of you had any major power that was at play, that anyone's laughter would be the reason why they would do that. There's no power dynamics that exist, etc. There's things
but you agreed. But look, the point is that you agreed there could be an argument against it necessarily being because it was funny. So, like, the idea that nobody would argue against that claim is false.
Yeah, we established that. Shamos is backtracking.
That's not what I meant by nobody would argue against
Shamos backtrack then.
Is that it was obvious that what was going on is y'all laughed because you truly thought it was funny. That's all I meant by that.
That's
okay.
I mean, that's gonna have to. Do you have evidence for that?
Evidence for what?
That we laughed because it was funny, or we thought it was funny.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, I thought that your reactions were genuine, and I thought that they were genuine because there wasn't a bunch of things.
Claim, Shamos. See, I'm asking for evidence.
I'm trying to see. I know that y'all are trying to make this into my claim. I'm trying to get past this so that we can explain why the utterance I thought was a bit strange to begin with, and why no one has disagreed. We're not even disagreeing.
I'm just interested in the evidence. You know, like that thing we went through 20 minutes ago where you demanded evidence. That's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Oh, okay, I see. So you would like evidence for what? The evidence for why that I thought your guys' laughter was genuine.
That's correct.
Because there were absence of certain factors that I thought that would make them not genuine. Certain factors, namely being power dynamics.
Is the claim that we reacted in such a way because it was funny, or is the claim just you thought we reacted in such a way because
I thought you reacted in such a way because you thought it was funny?
Okay, but look, you could have been completely mistaken about that, and it'll.
Of course, I'm not. Yes, I'm not infallible. Right? Yeah, I'm not infallible.
So it's trivial.
What's trivial?
Well, if it's just you, and it's not like some claim about us finding it funny in virtue of XYZ reasons, then the reasoning you give could just be justified by saying, "Well, that's why in my mind, that was coherent."
No, but I want to make a bit of a stronger claim. I want to make a bit of a stronger claim that these things track inductively people's reactions, and that I, as a person, social being that I am, can track onto these things and know when people's reactions are being genuinely. And they're not because of just seemings. See, what you wanted to pretend like all these things are just because of intuitions. They're not. They have to do with actual factors that are actual reasons, right?
See, that was my problem, though, because now you're suggesting some external objective framework for how human actions coincide with certain traits or behavior. and that's
Yeah,
gonna be
I'm
that's probably gonna reduce to an appeal to something like XYZ scientific papers or XYZ scientific principles, and then that's just empirical garbage. So it's fucking whatever. I guess that's fine.
I'm saying something that none of us reject.
If you were just saying like your reasoning in your mind is probably consistent with some scientific principle that exists somewhere, sure. But that's
No. I'm saying that none of us. I'm saying that none of us reject socially, but they're gonna be aligned with social principles that none of us reject. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying.
Hello, guys. I hate to interject. I just have a
Well, look,
question.
as long
a
as
new
if you
member.
think that's the same claim, that's fine. But what I'm saying, like, think about, I could give you.
If you say it's nothing anyone would reject, we're going to go back to what we did earlier, where I present an argument that you accept could be an argument against the position. Then you're going to have to say, okay, I guess somebody could not accept it.
Yeah, somebody could reject it. Okay, so great.
Right. So what's the point?
But I told you that that's not what I meant by when I said that. I've already clarified. What I meant when I said it is the reason why no one would reject, the reason why that you guys laughed because you thought it was funny is because all the social cues seem to indicate that, and all the social cues that would
seeming other than an intuition.
Yeah,
no. I just told you it doesn't terminate down to a seeming. I can give you an example. It actually terminates down to reasons. Okay, like for example, we know that people have like certain psychological features where they want to do certain things. If they say they have a relationship with somebody, right, and they're best friends, okay, and they're going to do things to want to protect them or want to protect the way that they feel or something like that. So if you get a situation in which you know that they would tell the truth in any other situation, except for in this situation, the truth would actually impinge on somebody who is very close to them. And then you knew that was true, but then you noticed that they lied there. You could say that the obvious explanation is because that person was close to them and would impinge on them. And what I'm saying is these are going to all boil down to basic psychological traits, and they're not intuitions. They're not intuitions. They have to do with actual reasons. People act these certain types of ways, given these types of stimuli, etc. And it doesn't boil down to intuitions. Okay, that's what I'm trying.
External objective framework I was talking about a second ago.
Am I appealing to what?
Look, I'm asking you point blank. Are you appealing to some framework beyond seemings and intuitions that would explain human behaviors given XYZ stimuli?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the justification for that framework?
I just told you they're going to be things about. They're going to be general consistencies about the way that humans act.
That's it? Is that it?
Yeah, broadly speaking.
That doesn't seem like a reasonable inference to make.
How do you differentiate between people universally having the same intuitions and whether they're appealing to an objective framework?
No, like what I'm saying. Look, I want to answer a little bit of a different way. What I think of a seeming is something that's pre-theoretical. It doesn't operate in any type of framework. You don't say something like it's just the way that it seems to you. Okay, you're not making any inferences from that. Okay, they're seemings. Now, if I make an inference and I say something like, if I know something to be true, and I know that person A knows something to be true, but person A lies about that thing to be true because lying about that thing would then impugn somebody that they were close to. We know that humans don't like to generally impugn people that they are close to. So that gives a psychological explanation of why she might have lied when you knew that she knew A was the truth. Okay? And I'm saying some things like that. That right there isn't a seeming, right? Because we're actually applying it and making inferences from it. So what you were asking me for, I was trying to show you those type of things with interactions and how we gauge people's behaviors.
Wait, but this is comparable to like a race realist argument in a way, right? There's going to be a framework set up that explains certain general consistencies, but then that framework is only going to have utility insofar as the use is concerned. It's only going to have utility insofar as the goal given how the framework is being used. What you're trying to say is that the framework is true outside of that goal, that intention. You're trying to say the framework exists whether the goal exists or not. It is just something that is completely external and exists all the time. Much like a race realist would try to float the idea that racial categorizations are objective, even though they're just contingent on the goal of the scientist using those categorizations. So all you're really saying is that we observe human beings doing behaviors that all other human beings also do, therefore XYZ. And those conclusions are going to be, in your mind anyway, contingent on that framework being objective, when the framework is just being used to explain that goal, right? In a way,
No. All I'm saying is they're inferential.
real quick, let me finish. What I'm suggesting is that in a way it's confirmation bias, because you're starting with a preconceived notion about how or why human beings would do certain things. Then you're appealing to general consistencies and some mysterious external framework to justify it, right? Even though you already started with something prior to the supposed framework. That's the definition of confirmation bias, right? Like that behavior could exist for a variety of reasons. That behavior could just exist for a reason completely unknown to you. But the fact that it exists at all and in your mind is consistent with the hypothesis means you can use it as a justification. That's literally confirmation bias.
No, that's not what you're confused as to what confirmation
I'm
bias
not
is.
confused at all, Shamos.
No, that's taking something as an axiom, and that axiom itself is come
Well,
to
if it was an
intuitively.
axiom, you wouldn't try to justify it at all.
No.
Yeah, axioms are unjustified.
No. Yeah, it's justified intuitively. Okay.
Then
And
it's not an axiom.
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends. Hold on. This all is going to depend on whether or not you think that.
What do you think an axiom is?
Look, this is all going to have to depend on whether you're an internalist or an externalist about justification.
No,
For example,
look, can you just... it has no bearing on that, right? You're trying to float an idea of axioms being justified now.
No, it does. Look,
JJ seems to think axioms are
Look,
justified.
an externalist will take the view. I'll just explain it to you. I'm not crazy. Let me explain it to you.
You don't want around in the pig pen. I don't know what that analogy was supposed to.
Look, let me explain it to you. I'll give you the difference of why there's some people that think that intuitions can be justifiers, okay? And there's some people that deny that proposition. So it's going to depend which side you stand on
that's
that.
not being. But look, you're not saying anything controversial. What I'm pointing out is that even though there are people who, for instance, think intuitions are justifiers, doesn't mean that somebody who didn't have an intuition is going to accept it, right? Like, let's say you have an intuition about people doing certain things or exhibiting certain behaviors. And let's say everybody else in this room at the moment doesn't share that intuition. Do you think that's going to be persuasive at all? Do you think that's going to lead anyone to the conclusion you're trying to make? Of course not. So why would you, in that case, right, ignoring whether or not you think they can be justifiers, why would you offer the intuition as an explanation given my assumption, which is that you're trying to be persuasive? You're trying to convince people that you're right.
Yeah, so I'll explain it to you with respect, and you picked up on something that's pretty key. Okay, so you're already a couple steps ahead of the game. It is true that what I'm doing is I'm making an assumption about why people act the way that they act, right? And it's true that those assumptions are going to be backed intuitively, okay? But it's true when you proceed forward from those assumptions, you're then in the business of making inferences, right? And so all I'm saying is, and I'm not denying any of those things, all I'm saying is something like this. I think that when people make decisions about how people act or the motivations for that they're acting, that they're actually doing so on the basis of inferences. They're not doing so just on the basis that oh, he just seems like he's lying. No, the reason why it seems like he's lying is because he's exhibiting these behaviors, and these behaviors are behaviors common of people who are lying, and you're making inferences based on the nature of those behaviors.
Do you think intentions can be observed or inferred?
No, I think that intentions are non-inferential. That so I think that if it's true via the rule following argument that intentions are sui generis, right? And if you've come to believe that, then you couldn't infer from that sui generis.
Wait, but then any inference about what a person is trying to do insofar as their intentions are concerned would necessarily be wrong. Because it wouldn't be justified.
Well, it's not that they would necessarily be wrong. They would necessarily be unjustified. There's a difference between it being wrong. There's a difference between it being wrong and being unjustified. Fallacious is also something completely different. Fallacious just means that it's not able to be proven.
Well, I mean,
through those.
look, that's all fine and dandy. I'm glad we agree it's unjustified. I'll agree to that. But you're the one trying to use it here. You're the one trying to say somebody could make an inference and, I guess, infer that somebody has the intention to be deceptive. But
I'm saying
by your own admission,
I don't really have any stock in it. I don't really have any stock in it. I don't really care either way. You guys might have a different answer to the question. All I was saying is it seems like there could be a case made that it's done on the basis of inferences. It isn't like if someone says, why do you think that person's lying? It isn't just going to be because, it just seems like it. It's going to be something like because they're exhibiting this type of behavior and they said this and they did this
but you
action.
just agreed that can't be a justifier.
No, what do you mean? It is a justifier.
Well, what it means to lie is to have the intention to be deceptive. So if you can't infer people's intentions, then what you're appealing to would not be a justifier for that person lying. Assuming you agree that
you can't infer their intentions, but you perceive them. You perceive them.
But that's just the same as a seeming.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's akin to a seeming. It's not the same, but it's
You've just shot yourself in the foot.
How did I shoot myself in the foot?
Because this whole time you were trying to make the case for somebody being able to infer that another person is lying, and you just
I don't really care. I don't really care either way.
Can I just finish? You just said that it would be akin to a seeming rather than an inference. How is that not shooting yourself in the foot? You basically just went against the claim you started the conversation.
Maybe I misspoke. Maybe I misspoke there.
Oh fuck.
Oh fuck. Oh god. Somebody was wrecked because they misspoke. So what do you think is at the crux of all this? So let me ask you a question. Because we're actually like about 20 steps removed from where we actually got off. Where we got off is you said something like Shamos, but everyone laughed and you didn't. And you said, therefore it was funny. And then I just said, you agree that that's not an objective notion. You said, I agree. I think notion's subjective. So we both agree. We both agree that notion's subjective. And what's interesting is now your statement just reduces down to Shamos. Most people laughed. Therefore, most people thought it was funny. And then I said, Hogan, do you think I would deny that inference? Oh, yeah, maybe you would deny such an inference. And then it got down to where we are now as asking about whether or not people's perceptions about people's actions hang on reasons or whether or not they hang on intuitions.
You're kind of like smuggling the idea in that I just sort of led you down this rabbit hole. But you were the one saying it could be inferred. That's why I responded.
What I'm saying is none of that's relevant to what was initially said. I'm saying we managed to get about 20 steps down the line to something that wasn't even irrelevant in the main conversation. When everyone got done,
well, I mean,
a bunch of people laughed. I was silent. Okay, and then you said,
you don't think we're gonna hang on like one topic for very long?
No. What I'm saying, it turned into some interrogation about shit that I don't even care if the answer is one way or the other. If it's true that it's all done through seemings, great, don't care. If it's true that it's done through inferences, I don't care. What I took umbrage with,
one way or the other, why would you make the claim that you could infer if somebody was lying?
What do you mean? I think that do.
What do you mean?
I don't care. What I'm saying is I don't care either way. I don't necessarily care either way. I'd be inclined to argue on the side that inferences are made. What do you think, Pogan?
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, okay, you don't fucking know. That's right. You want to do anything you can to shirk as much burden as you can in this conversation and get away from something. Now we're 20 steps removed talking about whether I think there's
like it's a bad thing to avoid making.
No, what I'm trying to say is I tried to stop for a minute. I tried to stop for a minute and point out two things and that were so far more removed from it. All I was trying to say is your statement just turns out to something like, hey, Shamos, most people laughed, therefore most people thought it's funny. And then I said, but that's just, you don't think I would deny that. And then you got so dishonest that you're like, yeah, you might deny that.
Oh, yeah, now you're dishonest. Okay, very good.
What I was trying to show you, Pogan.
Explain why that was dishonest.
Because think about how pretty. No, think about that inference there. Yes, most people laughed, and I think that they laughed, all things considered, because they thought it was funny. I don't think that there was other things going on. I think that there are situations in which people laugh in which they don't think it's funny. And I think in those situations, there's other social dynamics going on that explain this.
Situations where like you made a claim and then I showed you that you probably don't even agree with the claim, and then realizing the quagmire you were in went back to something from 25 minutes ago.
There's no quagmire. There's no quagmire. You said something stupid.
Well, let me explain what the quagmire is, right? Instead of you assuming that you know what the quagmire is. The quagmire is that you very much did indeed say that you can infer when somebody is lying, only to then 15 minutes later say, well, I don't really have any stock in the discussion one way or another. I don't really know. Now, that's fine. I don't know either. I just said I don't fucking know. But my problem is that you claimed at the onset that you can infer somebody's when somebody's being deceitful, right? So you were either being dishonest when you made that claim, or you just changed your mind halfway through the conversation.
No, you're confused as to how that conversation went. Okay.
Well, let me ask. Let me do one thing before you respond.
Look,
Is there anyone in the room that disagrees with the recollection I just espoused?
Sure.
Nah, man, you got it, bro.
Sure. Anyone else that's not going to agree out of pure bias?
Well, I don't know if I disagree, but I don't. I wouldn't say I agree.
hate Pogan with every fiber of my being.
See,
He's going to agree with you out of you there, just out of his bias for me.
I would love to.
Logan, I was asking, how did you infer Shamos' dishonesty? I missed that part.
No, either way. Look, if you want me to defend the proposition,
that he was dishonest.
Can I satisfy the appeal? I would love to side with Shamos, but
is it a dichotomy?
He has flip-flopped from inferring intentions, and now he says that intentions can't be inferred.
I mean, this is being streamed. Like we can just roll the tape.
Roll the tape.
Like I don't even think Shamos is going to disagree that the conversation started with him saying they 100% can be inferred. Or sorry, that you.
Yeah, I'm willing to defend that right now under scrutiny.
Right.
So if you
then you changed the claim for whatever reason. So you no longer
No, I said at the end of the conversation that it really doesn't matter to me either way, but I'm inclined to argue that it's inferential. And there's also the fact that I know because of the rule following argument that intentions simpliciter are going to be something that's not inferential. And so what I think is something's going on is probably that we're overlaying general inductive inferences over top of intentions as basically stand-ins. So yeah, I think so. Here, let me give you a reason. When you say, I say someone's lied, right?
I'm more than happy to talk to you about that, but just.
Well, hold on. Look. There's been a lot of interrogating. You guys have dominated about 80% of the mic time.
Yeah. I have one more question. We'll conclude the interrogation.
You're interrogating. You've shouldered no burden, so you're going to have to let.
We'll conclude the interrogation with this question. Will you retract?
No. I'm trying to. Pogan. You should afford it. You would never let me ever do this to you. What you've done to me tonight. You would never let me interrogate you. You would have been done. You would have been done from the very beginning.
Just let him ask his question.
No. Let me, a person who's being interrogated, who's only been given 20% of the mic time, let me explain. Okay?
Well, I mean, you don't really have a problem with interrogating.
Listen, if someone says,
me all the time.
Guys.
Oh yeah, so maybe there's like a lot of bank time on Pogan's account where he would be entitled to.
I mean, I don't know what notions you think of like being
what is
fair.
the question you're trying to ask, Shamos?
Look, I'm trying to show something, an example here, okay? So look, if I say something, I'm willing to defend. I don't think I've flip-flopped on anything, first of all, okay? I'm maintaining that I do think that when I say that someone is lying, I think that the justification that I'm going to be offering is not going to be that of a mere intuition.
So you retract the claim?
It's going to be inference. I never retracted that claim, okay?
No, I'm asking you to retract the claim that they.
No. I never made the claim of which you're saying that I'm retracting. I've never made that.
Retract it if you're making a different claim now.
I'm not making a different claim.
That's false.
What different claim did I make?
The claim you made at the onset.
That it's not really that important to me, and that it could go either way.
Shamos, can you just let Pogan say the claim?
The claim made at the onset was that you can infer if somebody's being deceitful. You're now saying you have no stock one way or the other, but you would be inclined to say that you can infer if they're being deceitful, which, while similar, is a different claim. I'm asking you to retract.
No. Listen, I mentioned that I don't really care either way, and that I wasn't seriously committed, that like it wasn't going to ruin my day. No, I'm still, listen, look, I've never backed down off it. I'm still defending that it's inferential the whole entire time. I just mentioned as a
you have no
caveat
reason to think
that
it
it's
is.
not that
We
big.
just showed you why it would have to be perceived if you hold to the perceived intentions view.
No. I think, like I just told you, I think what's going on there is, so you have intentions, right? And then you can only perceive those things non-inferentially, right? And then we have, let's say that the way that people act follow a general pattern, okay? And these are expressed through their intentions, okay? When then you always come to know that their intentions through non-inferential ways. Well, then we start getting these patterns, right? And then over top of that framework, we overlay a map on top of that framework. And that framework is some inductive framework. Like generally when people act this way, they do that. And truly, those things aren't really justified, but they're only justified as much as they track those behaviors. Do you see what I'm saying? It's really only justified. It's only really virtually justified in virtue of some intention. Okay. And so, but what I'm saying is, if you notice that in this instance, they've had these intentions, and then what you'll notice is when people act this way, they've had these intentions, and then when they act that way in the future, you can start to not infer just on the basis of that situation, right? So you're no longer inferring. You're no longer going on the basis of the way that they're you intuit the way that their intuitions are. You're going on something like, I've intuited a lot of people's intuition.
So it's an inference that reduces to a perception, rather.
It must, yeah. It's based on intuition.
No. It's based. Yes, it's based. I already told you that it's based on an intuition, and then over top of that, we lay a framework of inferences.
But I'm saying it's going to reduce back to the original perception, which again is not substantively different from anything that's been said already.
Yeah, but I don't know if it really reduces over, because I think that
perception, right, in order for the inference.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think it might be the case that some of those inferences can be justified, just as long as they're tracking some type of actual, like
what
there
I'm
has to be
pointing out,
tracking.
Shamos, is that it's going to regress back to the perception, and then by your own admission,
Yes,
that
it
perception
always
can't
is
be
going to. I
justified.
don't disagree with you there. And in fact, if you were listening about 10 minutes ago, I had already mentioned that it's always going to terminate down to something.
By your own admission, it terminates down to something that can't be justified.
No. Don't say that, because I actually think intuitions can be justified. See, the way that your language you're using it
terminates down to something that wouldn't be persuasive to other people that haven't had the intuition.
Just say wouldn't be an intuition. I mean, wouldn't be an inference. Use it. Just say it that way. Wouldn't be an inference.
I just don't understand. If you're going to agree with me on these things, sans minor language corrections, I don't understand why you're trying to act like this is a position that's tenable.
No, what I'm saying is, I agree with you via the rule following argument that intentionality and meaning is going to be some sui generis property. Okay, and because of the nature of what a sui generis property is, you're not going to be able to make any inferences because it's unique, it's one of a kind, it's of its own. Okay, it's sui generis. And so what's going to happen is, in order for you to come in contact with that property, you're not coming off any theoretical framework. So it has to be done through a seeming. So if all meaning is ultimately captured and justified by a seeming, right?
I'm not sure I understand how this is different from anything we've already said.
Well, what I'm trying to tell you is that I think that it's possible, and I'm not saying I've got this view completely fleshed out, but what I'm saying is I think it's possible in which people begin to overlay inductive inferences on top of those seemings. Like there's been this context, and then you've intuited the way that someone is seen, right? Or the way that they've intended, right? You've intuited that. And let's say you've intuited them enough, and it's justified in virtue of your intuition. And you've intuited them enough time in these contexts that instead of going to the intuition, you just start to generalize and say, I've seen this context before. In this context, I've intuited a lot of intuitions being this way. I'm going to just look at the context and infer just on the context that's why they're going to have a similar intuition. And let's say that there's something about the way that people act, right? That they act with general tendencies, right? They have certain types of natures, and that when you go and you look at those inferences, you're generally tracking those things. So what I'm saying is, it's possible that even though it does terminate down to a seeming, to an intuition at its base, that it doesn't mean that when you overlay these inferences on top of it, that they're not justified. They would be justified if they're correctly tracking some type of process, right? Like jealousy or something, and people act this way around certain relationships. You see like another man, another girl, and so that's the material that you see. You see another man, and then his girlfriend, and then you think, well, their intuitions are going to be this way based on the fact that I've actually came in contact with a lot of people in these type of situations, and I've intuited that this is what their intentions were. Maybe that they're pissed off, they're upset, they're jealous. You've intuited those things. But then let's say in the future you say, look, I've seen a lot of these situations before, and I know exactly how I intuited their intentions. I'm just going to say, because the situation looks similar, maybe that's how their intentions are going to be. And let's say that you say, oh, look, there's a boyfriend, there's the girlfriend, there's a love triangle. I'm going to intuit that they're all going to be pissed off and it's all going to be jealous. And let's say that you intuit it just because of the nature of the love triangle, not because of anyone's intentions. You just started over. And I think that's fair, right? Like if you say, oh, there's a love triangle. Oh, I bet they're going to be jealous and mad and shit like that. You probably would be right. But you would only be right if it's the case that generally jealous people in love triangle act a certain type of way. And that comports with a certain type of nature that generally. And so what I'm saying is, I think all of that can be fit into the same picture. None of those things are exclusive one another.
I don't get it.
Yeah, you won't get it.
Well, I mean,
So now that you've admitted that the interrogation is done, wanted to get back to what you initially
Well, you never
said.
did you ask the question? Did you answer the question?
By your own admission, it's not a fleshed out view, right? So I guess it's fine if it doesn't make sense. Did anyone else understand? We have anybody that wants to back us up on this?
He's making inferences to statistics. That's what he's doing. Statistics and how they map on like axiomatically to intuitions.
Yeah, but by his own admission, that's going to reduce to a seeming. And then he also said seemings are not justified. So
exactly.
No. I personally think that seemings are justified.
All right, look, again, let me rephrase. What I mean by
So do I.
unjustified with respect to seemings is that if somebody doesn't share that seeming, aka intuition, it's not going to be persuasive. If you intuit that there's a pink elephant on your face right now, and I don't share that intuition,
I
you're
understand
not
how
going to
you're using
persuade
that.
me by intuiting that there's a pink elephant on your face.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you mean when you say that. So I'll just keep that in my mind for when you say that. But all I mean by what I'm trying to say is, when there's certain groups. This is an internalist externalist debate on justification, and so an internalist on justification is someone like Jack. They have a views that there's a certain things that are justifiers, right? These are the things that can be given as justification, and they have to be reasons. Okay, and so on the internalist view, what are justifiers are reasons. They're a series of propositions connected together in a certain type of way that stand in a relation to one another, and that's what justifiers are. Okay, now an externalist agrees that those things, reasons, those series of propositions connected in such a way that stand in relation, are justifiers, but they also think that there are other things, okay, that aren't internal to the agent, that are actually external to the agent, that are actually justifiers. And they're talking about things that are like seemings, okay? And this is or non-inferential justification. So there are certain people that are going to fall on either side of that debate, whether or not you think that like there are a certain type of people called phenomenal conservativists, and they give a certain type of argument for intuitions being justified. There's a certain type of externalist. And so now you probably would be closer to Jack's variety, of which you would think that intuitions aren't justified. And there's reasons to think that that's view is wrong. Okay, so I can give you reasons to think that intuition should be justifiers. But ultimately, that's what my view is. Okay, but I think that there's ultimately grounds that you can make where you could overlay like a framework of inferences, and they wouldn't be mistaken or wrong. I mean, if you agree that, think about the love triangle shit. If you ever see a guy and a girl in a relationship and then another guy close together, like behind closed doors or something like that, you know, in order to understand what they intend, whether he really is jealous or he really is pissed or he intended to get mad or blah, 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 or whatever, any of those things, we all agree that those are going to be justified in virtue of just the way that you perceive it, not in virtue of any other facts about the world and how they relate together. Okay? But let's say that you come upon that scenario a lot, these love triangles, and you're like, damn, they're all acting the same way. They're all acting pretty jealous. They're all acting angry. They're all acting controlling. They're all acting type of way. And you've always accurately justified that through your perceptions, the things that we agree that do justify that. But let's say after coming in contact with these things 100 times, you just start saying, look, dude, anytime I come in contact with these type of situations, I'm no longer going to be interested in perceiving their intention. I'm actually just going to say these situations are so common. I'm just going to infer that their intentions are going to be this way. If I see another man in the behind closed doors with a woman, and I know that he also has a girlfriend, I know that the girlfriends were likely going to act this way. And it has nothing to do with me inferring anything about their intentions. It has to do with me inferring something about the nature of how these things play out.
Incel metaphysics.
No
and so,
kidding.
And so you might be right about that. I mean, do you guys think that that's a wrong inference if he says, yeah, if there's a guy and a girl behind a closed door, that's not his girlfriend, and then his girlfriend comes home, she's going to be mad. She's going to be mad simply because he's a guy and he's a girl, they're behind closed doors. Just talking about the material conditions, nothing about the way that they intend. You wouldn't be wrong about that, right? And but would we want to say that's unjustified? No, it seems like that's perfectly justified. I mean, how would you guys handle this? Are you just going to go like Hogan? I don't know. Instantly don't know. Instantly don't think about it. You guys have been interrogating me for an hour and a half over this shit. All for when he's just said something that was completely ridiculous. As if like 10 people laughing and me being quiet shows evidence that it really was funny. And all he meant by funny was that they laughed. Of course. And then he wanted to deny that inference. Oh, well, they could have laughed because they didn't think it's funny. Oh, I think all things being equal, no one could deny that. Oh yeah, people could deny that.
The ultimate point is he was upset
this
because
whole conversation
laughed.
was a big autist fest.
Yeah, like Shamos was. I don't even know what to classify what Shamos was doing, but the interesting part was when Pogan actually got into flip flop, which is great. And on that note, good night.
On that note, look, they're just like cheaply trying to win some conversation that, like, if they would have listened to anything I said, they know that I would have already admitted to those things outright, and my view never changed. It just shows you the petty nature of these guys. They would love to win any conversation versus me, even if it was like a hollow victory. Then when you ask Hogan, what do you think about this? He goes, I don't know, man. I don't know. And then he just realizes that he shouldered no burden the whole conversation. He's been interrogating somebody the entire conversation with no burden, and he's gotten fucking nowhere. All the while, the original thing that he said is just really fucking stupid. All he wanted to say was 10 people laughing and 1 people being silent is evidence that they thought it was funny. Oh, well, of course I wouldn't deny that. That's all you meant?
Silence.
If we just be quiet, maybe it'll go away.
I mean, that's pretty much a beautiful way of how to change the conversation to something that had nothing to do with anything, and then just ask somebody a bunch of questions and get them to shoulder burden all the while you be judge and jury or something. Like that's probably like some people should really watch that and take notes, because that's exactly like perfectly executed. He didn't make a single claim the whole time. He had no fucking clue. He just changed the subject all the way away from the original claim, and to which I'm actually agreeing some facts about the way that they're inferential or not, like shit that has nothing to do with anything. It's so hilarious, man. You can tell that my whole IRL has been really fucked up, and I'm way off my game if I'm letting people get this deep on me. You let my life going well and me like come in here and not get kicked and booted all the time and be on top of my game. That shit's never happening.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Yeah, thank you, Shamos. That was very good. That was very insightful, and I appreciate it, man. It was really interesting.
Okay. All right. What else can we talk about?
I think that for a minute we need to acknowledge Seamus's knowledge about this issue. I am actually impressed. And
Tasteless, would you shut the fuck up?
Yeah, dick sucking, ring kissing.
What? Okay, that's fine.
Shamos.
I
Your
really believe the
O-ring
things that I
tastes
say.
delicious.
Seamus,
Jesus.
you are so wonderful. Always, I think.
Your thick ropes of cum grace my head.
Oh my god.
I call you El Fapo.
El Fapo.
This almost feels like post-coital. It's kind of nice.
Nah, it doesn't.
Like maybe that was the worst thing.
More like the
No.
first sweet 10 minutes after the headache pill.
I mean, maybe, yeah, post-coital after like 20 years of marriage and you really don't want to fucking do it anymore.
After some really intense BDSM, yeah.
I would have no, I don't have any experience in that.
Andricus's wife is chasing him around when he's a chicken.
I don't want to do this anymore!
I said get my pot, little chicken.
No.
Don't make mama break out the spoon.
No, it got really sad towards the end of that marriage. It was, ugh.
Just shows how much y'all hate me because like the pettiness.
Oh God! Stop making this about you, for fuck's sake!
Look, maybe if you weren't so fucking boring, you wouldn't get all mad when no one ever cares about whether you're here or not here at all. Andricus, you need to realize that you've only been around like 6 months. You've literally
I don't care, Shamos.
literally injected yourself way too far into this community. You think you're way.
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't rammed my dick as far up
for
everybody's
somehow
ass as
you get to come in here 6
Shamos.
months and just decide exactly how everything goes.
Are you
and
threatened,
complain
Shamos?
vocally.
Are you threatened?
I think you should slow your roll a little bit.
Are you threatened?
Do you just go straight into like the new music club or whatever?
Is your insecurity triggered right now, buddy?
Look, you're just doing the Declan thing now.
Shame
Oh,
on
really? You're
I'm
insecure?
doing the Declan
Oh, you're
thing?
insecure, buddy? Oh, does it feel good, buddy? Oh, yeah. How does it feel, buddy? Oh, yeah, but yeah, I get it. I understand you're doing the Declan thing.
Yeah.
What I'm asking you is you need to be a little more socially aware. I know that you play music, right, with these bands and stuff. You don't go into a place where
I'm
these
not
guys have
interested
been
in
playing.
I'm not interested in
Guys have
any
been
of your
playing, like,
analysis of me as a person, Shamos. Not at all.
well, I'm just telling you, look,
We just had him. Shut
a
up.
little. You don't have to sit here to veterans that have been keeping the server alive for like 5 years.
I don't have to kiss. I don't have to kiss the ring of a
You don't have to
narcissistic
start
maniac
complaining about
either.
my
And
content.
Andricus, it's like he wants you to back for Ping Bridge in Vietnam or something.
I'm just saying,
Held
you
it off
guys
single-handed.
stop being whiny little cunts.
He's the last active Marine at Quezon, and just fucking, y'all don't understand. I've seen fire and I've seen rain.
All good.
I think he spoke more than Kathleen today.
Oh gosh,
Who
now
did?
see,
Are you talking about me, Fia?
Kathleen hasn't even been around. You're
Can someone
roboting,
tell Molly
Molly.
that she's stop laughing because she actually thinks her connection is decent.
I told
Look,
her.
if you keep laughing, she'll just keep doing this all night.
Shamos, no, I don't give a shit about anything you have to
Stop
do to control
laughing,
the
Andricus.
room.
The hell
Yeah,
is the
stop
matter with
laughing.
you?
Nothing's
No,
funny.
what I'm
This is
telling you,
serious
what I'm
business.
telling you is,
Andricus.
you need to. If someone's look, first, you have a priority. If someone's
God's
mic is
sake,
fucked
man.
up
Oh my
and they're
God.
losing packets, you need to immediately.
Yes.
Yes, I know that I've been losing my packets a while now.
Yes,
I know that you hate me. I know that you hate me, but you're ruining the conversation. Your hate's
Little
causing you
There
to
was no
listen.
conversation
What I'm
going
trying
on.
to
Shut
tell
the
you is
fuck
something.
up.
What
Shut
I'm
the
trying to
fuck
tell you, you
up,
would never deny
Shamos.
this. If Snooks or anyone was telling you this, you would
Shut
never deny
the
this.
fuck up, Shamos.
Stop being a cunt. Stop being a cunt and just listen to what I'm saying.
Start being a narcissistic maniac.
Stop being a cunt and listen to what I'm saying. Hey, tell me if you disagree. Stop just hating because you hate me. Disagree or
I
agree with what's
believe
coming
this
out of my
all
mouth.
started because you jumped in on me even saying
Bro,
anything. I
do you
believe
agree?
that's what
Do you agree
happened.
that if Molly
So no,
is
I
sitting,
don't agree with you.
listen, do you agree that if Molly's sitting here dropping a bunch of packets, the first thing we should say is, "Hey, Molly, your connection's messed up." Not to laugh at what she said, and maybe she thinks, Oh, they did hear what I said.
Wow, this is a really important
fucking dare
distinction
you,
you're
Andrew.
making right
Just
now.
trying to
Yeah, I
listen. It
know.
is
I know.
important.
Molly,
So
I'm
I can't-
sorry I let you down and didn't tell you about your packet
No,
loss
what I'm
right
telling
away,
you
Molly.
is
I am
she might be
so
under the
sorry.
impression. She might be under the
I
impression
knew
from that
I was.
exchange
I knew
that her
I was.
connection
No,
is
I knew
okay.
I was on. I knew I was roboting. No, I knew. I can see. I can
Okay,
put my
Molly, you're still
latency
roboting.
is on.
You're still roboting. You're still fucking roboting. I'm not going to sit here and laugh at what you said or keep going or pretend. I'm going to tell you,
That's
you're
great,
still
Shamos.
roboting.
You hang
Still
on to that integrity,
I
brother.
know.
You hang on to that integrity,
I
man.
know. I
You know-
know when my connection goes out.
You know, Andricus, I had a nightmare that Shamos was one of those little those little house things. Those little, you know, like you put them in the middle of your kitchen table and they control your whole house and stuff. What do they call them things? I don't know. Everybody has a different name for it.
The Alexa things, the little
It was instead it was Shamos, and everywhere I fucking went, I had to listen. Fucking, you know that's not the actual best way. You should wipe your ass. Oh no, fucking tell me. Am I supposed
You're gonna listen to me because you need to hear this.
That's right. That's right. If you'd only listen to me, I'd have been finished already.
all I'm trying to say is, like, Andricus, you should work on in the future. Just stop being biased and just agree with what's coming out of my mouth on the merits of what I'm saying, not on the
Okay.
merits that I'm saying it, but on the merits of what's being said. Look, that's just called being a reasonable person. It's called not being blinded by just bias. Okay. All I'm trying to tell you is, personally, I think the highest duty we have is, first of all, tell her packets are busting up so that she can get it under control, so that she doesn't keep doing
Packet
it or whatever.
integrity. Got
If
it.
we just
Got it.
continue
Packet
to laugh
integrity.
at her, and she might just continue to think everything's
I
fine and just
don't
go through it.
care what my packets look like, you fucking donkey. Shut up!
I care what your packets look like, Molly.
I know, I appreciate it. Because it doesn't matter what my packets sound like
Molly,
to you, Shamos,
Andricus,
because you're an over-talking
Gus, and everybody else
motherfucker.
took like a couple
See,
weeks
right
off.
now my sound is perfect and you're
markedly
over-talking me. Shut up, you fucking donkey.
Look, you don't even need to speak right now. You're just talking
No,
bullshit.
neither do you. Shut up. Shut up. Do you
You're
not
just
understand what I
talking
say?
bullshit.
Shut up.
You're just talking bullshit like you always do.
Molly, come on. This isn't cool,
another
Molly.
note-
Listen, if I didn't feel like listening to you,
Desperately
you were
trying to
talking,
drag the
I wouldn't try
conversation
to
away
talk
from
to
Seamus
tell you
always-
to shut up. I would just leave, right? I would
Yes,
just leave. I
please.
wouldn't say, Molly, shut the fuck up. You're not allowed to. Yeah, shut the fuck up. Dude,
Taste this.
you're
Shut
not
up.
realizing what you're doing. You're acting like assholes and then trying to
Oh,
portray Shamos in a way that he's being
God.
reasonable. He's
They do
he's
this.
having a
They do this with
conversation.
almost
we can't get the
no one
conversation
but
away
me.
from
They
Seamus.
almost do this with
No
no
matter
one
You're
what
but
acting
me.
happens,
like assholes, dude. You're acting like fucking dorks.
Yeah, they really
Like,
are.
You are the
I
one
really
reached the
are.
point
acting
now
like
where I'm
fucking
willing to go
idiots.
fucking,
It is not Shamos. It is you. Okay?
swing from the fucking rafters by my balls.
Jesus,
Anything to fucking get away from Seamus.
Broke down. You guys came in here. Everything, all the bad abuses have been literally on you guys' side. I'm not afraid to have
You're
a
absolutely
conversation
right.
with any of you.
Yes.
I'm not afraid to have a civil conversation with any of you.
Yeah, civil conversation means you spend an awful lot of time listening. That's your idea of a civil conversation.
Dude,
You're
I was
so
literally
entitled.
gangbanged the entire. I was gangbanged the entire time.
We've had amazing conversations while you've been gone, Shamos.
Yeah, and it's you're actually making my point for me. The point is you guys think that because you hate me so much that you just get to literally abuse the fuck out of me in the conversation. And like, you guys can have great conversations all day long, no matter what. But as soon as I come in here, you just act like fucking heathens. You act like barbarians. And you think like you're perfectly justified in doing that, even though I'm never the one to make those abuses. But it's always painted out as Shamos is the one that comes in here
The
interrupting.
victim
Shamos
complex
is the one
is a
that comes in
clear
here.
sign of narcissistic personality disorder.
No, dude, it's you guys, man. It's you
It
guys.
is you guys,
You
man.
guys
Listen,
constantly interrupt me.
exactly.
Dude, look how crazy you were just acting. I was saying something completely sensible, and you just kept interrupting me and kept over talking me just because you don't like me. That just shows you're an unreasonable motherfucker, dude.
Telling me how I was being uncharitable to Molly by not telling her about her packet loss. Yeah, that was reasonable.
Andricus, don't forget that somehow that dislike is accurate. There's no reason for the dislike, like none at all. None that could possibly have anything to.
Yeah, it's fine if you dislike
Or
him.
not to
That's
wanna
fine, but
listen
you're
to
trying
what
to
he's gonna
shit on
say.
him and acting
Yeah.
like assholes, trying to prevent and
Oh
obstruct him
God! And the
talking.
fucking Mexican
And you're doing the
contrarian
same to
back
me, right? Now, Gus, if it
I
was the
swear
case
to
that
God,
disliking a
man,
person
if I told you this
warrants me,
fucking grass was green,
if
you'd think
it
it was.
was the case that warrants just because you hate a person warrants you to obstruct
You
them,
know what?
overtalk them,
I don't
act
want
like
to.
an asshole towards them,
That's
right?
it.
Just because you dislike him, right? You would be okay, right? But it is not.
Cases, how many miles do you get out of that donkey?
Yeah, listen, you can say what you want, Molly, but this is true, right? He's acting
No.
in a very since he returned, you
No.
didn't want to
No.
listen to him.
No.
You were
Shut
trying
up.
to obstruct him.
Shut
You
up.
were trying to
This
shut
is
him
true.
down, and you fucking became right all defensive, subjective, and you were screaming like an idiot, right? Basically. So if you're not going to accept this, Molly, it is not his fault. You're just trying to impose your personal preferences, right,
Shut
onto
up.
him. You're trying to shit on him. That's it.
Shut up.
Now listen, this is just shameful behavior on you guys.
That-
I gotta go. I'm gonna.
Thank
Go, you
you.
must bounce.
There
Go on,
must
bounce.
be a God.
You must bounce.
You should be ashamed, guys.
Go on,
You
go on,
should
bounce.
be more mature
More with
and
the
act
bounce.
like adults. I'm sorry, man.
Bounce faster.
If you want, listen, man. If you want other people to
Bounce.
follow along, you should put the example as a
Well,
mod and as people that you're trying to moralize how Amos should act. Okay, you should
Shut
put the
up.
example. I'm sorry. I'm gonna.
Go on, bounce.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, Tisa.
There is justice in the universe.
Yeah, let's not do the shouting down thing, guys. Okay.
Yeah, I don't like that at all either.
Yeah, I felt bad for Shamos, man. He just came back and everyone just ganged up.
How the hell would you know, Yuri? You spent the entire time.
You've
Back.
got to be kidding.
How did you have any time to pay attention to the conversation with all?
You keep cutting out, guys.
Yeah.
I've been in chat the whole time.
How would you manage to figure out what the conversation was? What all them Asians in chat? I imagine you have any time.
Oh, I have two monitors. I can multitask.
You're breaking up a little bit, Gus. Just so
Yeah, you're breaking up though.
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can with what I got.
I know. Just letting you know.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Hey, sometimes because I have my push to talk settings set for Overwatch as well. That's annoying. And so I'm just talking to people on Discord, but the people on my team can hear me. I feel so bad.
Oh, what's going on, Yuri?
Oh no, things are been all right. I'm doing pretty.
Uh-oh, did Joe leave out of disgust? Damn it.
No, he's here.
Oh, is he?
He said, "I'm not leaving. I'm an addict."
Good. I love Joe.
Currently working on the next Tom Unboxes video.
Oh,
Ooh. Do we get to know what you're unboxing, or is it a big secret?
It's a huge secret.
It's
Only one person in the entire.
It's me. No, it's not. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's actually me since I'm the director.
Yeah, right.
I'm just joking.
Actually, actually a lot of work. Like it.
How long is it taking you to come up with the basic idea, the inspiration in the first place? Because I'm sure the execution doesn't.
Well, the
take nearly as
idea,
long
I came up pretty quickly. Yeah. Well,
I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not trying to trick you into giving anything away.
Yeah.
Well, we've been waiting a long time, so it better be good.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be good.
I was talking to a godless girl today
What?
about I was talking to her today, and she was with Josh and stuff, and she was asking me what I was like planning on doing and stuff, and I told her that I was planning on one day moving to Vietnam, and she was like, why would you want to do that? And I told her all the benefits and the housing and stuff like that, and then she was like super excited, and then she tried to convince Josh to like, can we move to Vietnam because Vietnam looks great, and then you know how Josh is, but.
They have some kind of are you serious? There's some kind of like incentives to get people to come there.
No, it's actually considered one of the best places to retire. You can spend like less than $500 a month on rent, and you can live very, very nice, very well, in fact, in the
Where is
country.
this at?
Vietnam. And almost
but then
everyone
you have
speaks
to.
English in there. It's like required that you speak that people.
Then
It's like
you have to live in Vietnam.
what?
That's her reputation, right? No, Vietnamese people are very nice.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
they sure are. But
I'm sure they are, but
fucking,
it's still Vietnam.
You'll be sucking on fucking quinine pills for the rest of your fucking life, so you don't end up with the malaria two-step.
No,
you were not born over
no,
there.
it's not like that, Gus. These aren't
yes,
boomer days, man. These aren't boomer days, bro.
Oh my God! Here
you don't. There are alternatives.
They've eradicated malaria, have they? Because I'd love it if they did. Have they?
There are other remedies.
Yeah. So you'll take your friggin' quinine pills, fucking.
So what? Gigi wants to move to Vietnam?
Yeah, she was interested in it, and when I told her about rent and how nice you could live, she looked and she was like, "Wow, man, this is
How
nice.
much is rent?
You can live very well for like under $500 a month on rent. I've seen people even go lower, way lower, and you can actually get very nice like apartments and stuff like that, and housing compared to like what you can get in America for like $500.
Yeah. Next in Gus's lineup of stupid questions. I don't suppose you speak any Vietnamese.
Man, I'm so excited. And then after I live in Vietnam, I'm gonna like
just fucking cruise right over that one.
I'm going to move into Korea for a bit, probably get a visa and live there for like 2 years, and then probably come back to the States.
Okay, we know how much you frickin' dig Asian girls.
No, that's not the reason why. I knew you guys were gonna.
Man, he
I
wants
knew you
to
guys
do
were gonna
his
say that.
fucking his pecker
I'm
Asian
completely
shirt.
with you on this, by the way.
I knew you
but
guys
I just picked Thailand instead.
Oh, Ben! Oh, what a surprise! You're backing him up on this.
That's cruel.
That's cruel.
Oh, it's cruel.
That's
It's not like Ben. My bad.
Oh yeah, Thailand's another place I'm going to visit since Thailand is pretty close to Vietnam, and the languages are quite similar. In fact,
If
there's
you
a
need
few
a
differences though.
Vietnamese like citizenship or Thai citizenship, let me know. I can hook it up.
Thanks, man.
Yuri?
How can you?
Yuri,
I can get somebody to marry him for a couple $100.
Yuri, do you speak any Thai, Yuri?
I speak Vietnamese.
So what? D crop.
I asked you if you spoke Vietnamese, and I got nothing but silence.
Sun Nun Song Sam Si Ha Ho Chepek
I didn't hear. I'm playing a game right now. What'd you say, Gus?
I said I asked you if you spoke Vietnamese earlier, and I got nothing but silence.
Oh, I didn't hear that. That's what you guys were laughing about. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know how to speak Vietnamese.
Multitasking.
I'm not very. I know enough Vietnamese to like get by in Vietnam and have conversations. So like eat, maybe flirt a bit, and
find the bathroom.
How did
no,
you
not
learn
that.
that?
A little bit more than that. I can
Was
even
it
have
self-taught or?
self-taught. I use like
that's cool.
various like online resources and stuff like
Make
that.
sure to get all your shots, man. Don't skimp.
Yeah.
You get fucking bit by one of those fucking obscure Vietnamese four-peckered fucking goat ticks. There'll be some goddamn it's something fucking down there. It's not. I'm not trying to scare you. It's just you've got to get all your shots. You got to go to the doctor and say, I'm going into the deepest, darkest jungles of what do I fucking need so as I don't end up dead, bloated on a fucking dock someplace. And he'll give you a list. He or she will give you a fucking, or they will give you a fucking list of what you need to get. Don't skimp out. Fucking get everything on the list. Do yourself the favor. And watch out for malaria because malaria is real. It's something people actually get. And when they get it, and fucking it damn near kills some people. So take your fucking anti-malaria pills or get your shot or whatever the fuck you're supposed to get.
I gotcha, yeah. Oh man, but if I actually get it to work out, I'm gonna be like really proud of myself.
Keep that Duolingo on your phone, man.
Oh, I already have it. I use Duolingo's all right. But I use Duolingo mostly to like help me with like sentences and sentence structure and just to keep it in my mind, you know. But a lot of it I just read and got from like various online resources and stuff.
Because Duolingo focuses on mostly like common conversational stuff, right?
Duolingo's gotten better, admittedly. So they focus on a lot of sentence structure and like learning the alphabet, right? I really like how they have Korean presented, right? But I think Bank gave me a good resource for Korean that's more intuitive, than the way Duolingo has it. But I'm satisfied with the way Duolingo teaches like the sentence structure and the alphabet. So you're simply not just memorizing phrasing.
Right. I mean, I've always heard about Rosetta Stone, but I've never tried that.
The Rosetta Stone's really, it's really kind of, the word is clunky, I guess would be a.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I use Rosetta Stone a bit, but
Did
it's something you
Orson
have to pay
take
for.
off?
I think he's still in text.
No, I'm here.
Oh, dude, it's so juicy. It's so
What is?
juicy. I know that some of these newcomers are not gonna like me saying this, but because it kind of is gonna take us back a few steps.
Just say it.
But guess what I decided to do, Orson? Like diligent people who are sometimes that do their due diligence are often rewarded for. Sometimes if you do go back and you watch the live stream, you can find out exactly verbatim what somebody says. Well, check this out. Look at when you find out what he says, this is what Pogan says, and I had to rewind it back 4 times, and because it's live, the timestamp continually moves.
Right.
But I got it verbatim. Here's what he said. You're going to love this, Orson, man. In a situation where everybody except for one person is laughing about something, which is more plausible? That the one person being correct that it isn't funny, or that the other people being correct that it is funny?
I've maintained all along that would be the best out there is to be supposing objectivity.
Right.
What?
So look, what's
I
interesting
thought we were
is
dropping this.
No.
Yeah, I told you the newcomers. It's going to be Andricus, Snugs, and it's going to be Fia are going to be the ones that are going to continually repeat.
I haven't said a goddamn word.
What am I
Yeah,
gonna
and you want to
do?
know why? Is because you guys you're not really hip to
Shamos
that
is-
this is a debate server.
Yeah,
You're
great, Shamos. So keep fucking
what the
talking.
server's really about. And so look, you guys need to chill out.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
people
let's
that
get
have
some
been here a long
resolution.
time.
Keep
But we're
your
going to get into
Hold
this.
on.
This is kind of
narcissism
what we
Hold
do.
on,
So Fia, shut
hold
your mouth.
on.
Shut your mouth. We're gonna get
I
to the
would like
bottom
to
of it.
hear about what I'm doing wrong, supposedly. Anyway.
No, I don't think you've said anything yet. I just said that I figured if anyone were going to say something, it would be some of the newcomers. I'm just saying you were.
Okay, Mr. Insecurity.
I was just saying, I thought you were going to drop it. That's it.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how I called the source? You want to know? It's because I am perceptive. I know what's going on.
No, you called it. You called us out,
I know what.
Shamos.
So,
You called
Orson,
us
your boy
out.
ain't dumb. Orson, your boy ain't dumb. Your boy ain't dumb. I understand the social
I think you
side.
laid
You're gonna
down.
say it.
I think you laid down a self-fulfilling prophecy by saying that they're going to, and
Yeah,
then attacking them.
exactly.
Attacking them. You missed that part, Shamos.
Well, hey! I don't feel attacked. I was genuinely interested in what it is
But
that.
I do think Shamos is right that
about you
the
guys being
room does not
newcomers.
appreciate this
Cares
content, which
about
is
the
a shame.
fact You want to have a new conversation or blah blah blah. Y'all are boring.
Well,
Y'all
you
don't
can
get to talk outside.
he can sit there and spurg out with his
Me and Orson
insecurity
are
and
gonna
assume the
hack
room's
into this a
intent,
little
or he
bit
could just
because
talk about what he was talking about.
me and Orson are gonna hack into this a little bit because that's what we do on these debate
Then
servers.
go.
Y'all talking about Rosetta Stone. We're gonna hack back into this for a second.
Fine.
Guys, fuck
Narcissistic piece of shit. Just go.
I love how most of what Andricus is going to do when I'm around is just like turn this into some weird little homosexual feud between us. Bro, just get
Well,
over yourself.
I won't, because then you want to have me put to death.
Get over yourself and stop using the word narcissist with me. It's just going to turn into a thing. You're going to be like Van the Man.
I don't have to
It's
turn
gonna
it
be-
into a thing.
You're
It
going
is
to be
a
like Van
thing.
the Man or something like anti-homosexual
Oh my
cheerleader.
god, Shamos, just get to your point.
Yeah,
no,
I
he
knew.
can't.
I
No, he
knew.
can't. The
So
insecurity
predictable.
is just
So I could have
rampant. Just
wrote the
go.
code for Fia. Everyone knew you were going to say that exactly when you were going to say it. You're so predictable. You have no depth.
I'm glad. I'm
such a
glad I'm
piece of-
predictable. Then
So Orson,
You're such
getting
a
back,
piece of shit. So talk about Pogan.
just give me and Orson a few minutes, and we'll be
Go ahead.
thoroughly done with this. Okay, me and Orson are very
waiting.
quick and
Why don't
thorough.
you just
We're
let
literally
Gonka-
waiting.
All right,
All
Orson, I want to read it one more time. In a situation where everybody except for one person is laughing about something, which is more plausible? The one person being correct that it isn't funny, or the other people being correct that it is funny? And here's what's interesting. First of all, the statement seems on its face to presuppose objectivity. Why? Because it's ascribing a property and being correct, a fact of the matter. So it's talking about it being funny and it being correct as if it's funny. Now that seems to presuppose objectivity, okay, which he denied. What's interesting is my original criticism actually goes home big time. That if you actually turn that into what he says, if you go to think that this statement no longer presupposes objectivity, it just becomes vacuous, because he's basically saying, in a situation where everybody except for one person is laughing about something, that which is more plausible, the one person thinking that it's not funny, or that the other people thinking that it is funny? And see how it just boils down to something that no one would argue about, which is precisely what my criticism was. And so
It would be yeah, right. You said it was circular. That's true. It's either circular or
precisely
he's
what my
begging
criticism was. And
objectivity.
and it's also something that no one would deny, because I also said that I don't think that that's funny. I said, this is what happened. I said, guys, I don't really think that that's funny. Y'all are memeing, y'all are being this. He said, yeah, in a situation where everybody except for one person is laughing about something, which is more plausible? The one person being correct that it isn't funny, or the other people being correct that it is funny? And what he seems to be saying is that, like, there's actually a fact of the matter as to what's going on around here. And if he's not saying that, it just turns into, yeah, more people laughed because they thought it was funny. And I would have never denied that. So it just becomes something completely stupid. And you want to know what shows you that they're complete Jews? Orson, I don't ever want you to be this way. And I want you to, at least, if you take anything away from this tonight, Orson, take this away. Okay? You never want to be the type of Jew that turns a conversation like that into discussion about whether or not it all hangs on intuitions, or whether or not it all hangs on are there inferences, or blah, blah, blah. See, none of that had to even take place. That was just their way of obfuscating and making it so that they were playing judge and jury,
Hold on,
and they got to question over.
I don't think that was purely Pogan's like motivation or intent. So the problem is that you rhetorically said that nobody would argue that they laughed because they didn't find it funny. And when he asked you about that, you kind of committed to it, but you were being rhetorical. When he drilled down to it, it was not the case that you would make that claim literally.
Yeah, it's like saying something like this. In the English language, people will. It could be thought of as a figure of speech, but it's not it's not the proper way of thinking of it in English. Is not a figure of speech. Think about it. Something. Do you know what the divine right of kings is, Orson?
No.
It's this idea that the reason why the king is the king is because he was made the king by God, right? That's the reason why he's the king. You know what I'm saying? It's the divine right of kings. You're a king because God willed it to be so. You understand?
Yep.
And so that's what divine right of kings. So there's this statement some people will say, like in the English statement, like, dude, no one believes in the divine right of kings. But what they don't mean is, like, there's not a single person that believes in that. Surely there's got to be some crazy person that believes that. So what they really mean is, like, no rational person believes that. They're not making a universal statement. Okay? And what I was saying is something, put that in the context of what I was saying. And this is perfectly obvious when you just I didn't think it needed to be explained.
Yeah, the only problem is he seemed to address it as if it was a universal claim, and you bit down on it. It must have been a miscommunication, because I felt like you could have
It must have been. I'm not beyond saying there being a no or negative or not a negative applied to it, and me affirming it or denying it and not hearing that there was a negative or something. There may have been something like that. But all I was trying to say is something like this. When everyone laughed And I was basically saying, of course, because Pogan questioned the fact that I said, look, your statement just becomes pretty circular, pretty trivial. It just means that more people laughed. It's because they thought it was funny. It's not because it was funny. It's because they thought it was funny. Of course, I would never deny that the reason why they laughed is because they thought it was funny. Of course, that's why they laughed. And what I was saying is, no one would deny that. No, what I meant by that is no one would deny, and I didn't mean not a single person could ever deny. What I meant is no rational person that had given all the information that we were given the information and all the things that were at play would ever deny that the reason why they laughed is because they thought it was funny. That's what I meant. No, I didn't think that any power dynamic. I didn't think where people were laughing because they wanted to please a certain person. I thought it was completely genuine. But what I'm saying is, any rational person would have thought that the laughter was genuine. In
Right,
fact,
I agree with you. It's just
so I
don't
all I
think
meant
Pogan.
when I said that, and that's
I
all
don't
that I
think
meant when I said that. And I didn't mean a
right.
universal statement. And you want to know what's actually interesting? Hold on, let me say this last thing, Orson. One sentence. Pogan's statement actually presupposes that. Which is more plausible? One person being correct, or the more people being correct that it is funny? He was saying that his statement itself presupposes that when more people laugh, it's because they think it's funny. His statement itself presupposes that the reason why they laughed is because they think it's funny. Listen to it. In a situation where everybody except for one person is laughing about something, which is more plausible? The person being correct that it isn't funny, or the other people being correct that it is funny? And he meant that rhetorically. He wasn't asking me to give an honest answer as if it were an open question. He was meant to say it's a closed question. It is more plausible that when more people are laughing that they think it's funny. See what I mean? So he was already embedding that assumption into it. So it was like silly that he was questioning me on that, you know?
I don't think it's from what you describe as his Jewishness or some shit. It's just the way the dialectic went down.
I mean, I suppose they really could be this naive, but I don't think so. I think they're purposefully trying to be sophists.
It would only also, do you know, you say it was baking in, it's presupposing the idea that nobody would argue against. He says it's plausible. He's asking which is more plausible, with the expectation of it being more plausible that it's funny because more people laughed with it. So
yeah,
he would.
exactly. He's already taking that laughter is all things equal evidence for being funny.
He would only agree with your assertion or rhetoric of nobody would argue against it if he would have the premise that nobody would argue against what's plausible. But I think that should be a starting point almost.
Yeah, but when I said nobody would argue against it is that when you guys laughed, I don't think that anyone would disagree. Is that the reason that you guys laughed because you really thought it was funny?
I thought it was a small point to digress into.
But what I didn't mean was like no one nowhere could ever deny that or something. I wasn't saying that.
It's necessarily impossible to deny that when people laugh, they find it funny. That was sarcasm.
But anyways, I think you kind of saw what was going on there. So anyways, that's all I needed to say.
I don't understand how you can say. So how do you think that intentions can be inferred? I mean, we do this all the time.
That's going to be I think that's the common sense view. So I mean, like, that's the notion that most philosophers should want to preserve.
I mean, I think it's what we all do, and I mean, we do it all the time. Like we're in this room and we're saying we would say to somebody, "Oh, you're," and they'd be like, "How do you know that?" And it's like, "Well, we inferred it." It's like, "What's the evidence?" Well, we inferred it from your actions. And that's like a meme that we've had almost here. So, but the thing is any inference based on actions and justifications based on like induction, as far as I can understand, will just reduce down to times that you've established intentions, which would always be established through intuition. Like, so you'd say, okay, I grant the circumstance where somebody said they told me their intention, but you would use that as a starting point, but you'd have to have the intuition that they were telling you the truth about their intention.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to be like a compatibilist. Like, I agree that it all is going to ultimately terminate down to some intention. But I think that doesn't mean that ultimately those inferences might not be justified. There might be a way that it's grounded in intention. It is justified ultimately in intention. but there are ways that you could set up a framework of inferences that themselves track some function, and they themselves are also justified. You
Do
know,
you
but
think
they
it can
wouldn't be.
be? Do you think it can be explained in the same way of coherentism, where it's like background justifications and foreground justifications, or something like that? Yeah.
So think about it, and I want to play on a very distinct notion, and I've been smoking some weed, so it might be hard for me to get out, okay? But see if you can track what I'm saying. You know, where like you get evidence sometimes that you think somebody's lying because of something that they do, right?
It'll be like they were found out to not to be telling the truth, and then they're like embarrassed, or they're trying to like rationalize it post hoc, etc. Those are like the evidences.
Yeah. But I don't want to talk about like ways that you can read them as a person. I mean, like think about let's say like this. Here, I got a good one. Let's say me and you go rob a bank, right, Orson? And let's say we go hide the money, right? And we go hide the money in this one spot, right? And let's say that I come to you, okay, and I say, hey, bro, the money's stolen. Somebody stole it from us out of our spot, right? And let's say that you had caught me later on that night, right? For whatever reason. Let's say you believed me, right? For whatever reason. But then later on that night, you saw me going back to that spot, right? Which, by my own admission, is now empty, right? And let's say that you take my going back to that spot as evidence that it's actually not empty. In fact, that was a lie, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So you're using the fact that like the only way he would go back to that stash spot, given the fact that he's already told me that it's empty, is because there really is something there. And when he told me that it was empty, it was because it wasn't. Do you see what I'm saying? And so what
Right,
you
but then
do is
you'd be like you're sneaking in intuition there by saying that the only way he would go back, he could go back there for a myriad of reasons. He could have left his keys there.
but look, before we get to that, you agree that there is an inference being played.
No, I've said all the time that there's inferences, but the chain of justification, as far as I can see, will always bottom out at intuitions.
It's always going to bottom out in intuition. But here's the question. So we agree that it always bottoms out in intuition. We agree that after a certain point, there are these inferences that are framework of inferences that are being overlaid on top. Okay, and
yeah, that's why I asked the question. That just to make sure this is included. Then that's why I asked the question. Is like if we talk about like justifying our worldview, and like people being a coherentist would say that their propositions are evaluated against their background beliefs. Do you think there might be something going on that is just like that, which would try to avoid the idea that it bottoms out at intuition?
Say that one more time.
So a coherentist would avoid the idea of bottoming out in like a worldview, like an infinite regress, by saying that all they do is like they have a network which is built on their background beliefs, and it doesn't even, it's like they have a non-cognitive position as to like an
right. That's how they avoid it bottoming
in
out.
regards in regards to like an infinite regress. They think it's like a non-cognitivist position. So do you think that same idea of a framework could be applied to the framework we're proposing, where there might be a way of having all these justifications that apply to each other, which you could always avoid bottoming out into intuition?
Yeah, I suppose that's one way of approaching it. It's not the way that I'd be approaching it here, but I suppose that's one way of doing it. Where you would say like basically what I mean, what I mean for those things to be justified isn't the fact, it has nothing to do with what comes first. It has to do with how they relate together as a function. And that's what I mean by it. Yeah, I mean that's one way. That's probably a way that you could do it. But like the way that I'm saying is like I want to preserve the note. I agree. Like we and you are on the same page. We agree that at one point that at the end of the chain of reasoning, there's going to be these intuitions, but at some point we start to overlay these inferences, and it seems like most people want to go use those inferences as shorthand and so we want to preserve the notion that they're justified. And so, like, I want to kind of say that I think that there must be some way in which they could both be true. Like, I don't think it's a dichotomy. It could be both be true that the inferences are true, and that's they're justified in inferring it that way, and it's also justified the other way too. But I don't know. I'd have to think
No,
about
so
it. But
could you say the dichotomy again? Could you lay out the dichotomy again, just so we can grapple with it clearly?
yeah, like if it's like justified intuitively or not intuitively, is the dichotomy.
You think it could be true that it's justified intuitively and not intuitive?
Yeah.
Well,
But
when
like
I think
what?
of
Not, but
justified,
not like
there's
and.
two senses of the word, right? Like, you could say because you can justify anything with anything. It's just like belief stacking. But then that's not what we mean when we say somebody is justified. It's like they've met a certain criteria of justification. And if you keep asking the question of
Explanatory
why,
virtues.
maybe. If you keep asking the question of what's the argument for that, eventually you'll get down to them using their intuitions to justify something. And at that point, you'd say, are we allowed to use our intuitions to justify something? And that would be, as you say, in the dichotomy, it would always, as far as I see, flip towards it starts with intuitions. And that it's not based on justification, universally justified. This is the same
It's
question
hard
I'd
to say
ask
how
Joe.
that picture works together. I mean, it is hard to say how that picture works together, you know. But I mean, I think for me, it's a little weird when you say something like, "Look, I know that pretty much everybody's overlaying all these kind of inferences with the way that we interact, and they're giving reasons, etc. But like, none of those things really have anything to do with why we should think those things are the way that they are. And all those things all boil down to seemings. Like, it starts to become, if it just were the case that like all those inferences were wrong, even though they seem to be fairly reliable, it would be, I just don't like the way that it works, the way that it fits together, you know? And so, I guess maybe that's something about I guess that's something like cognitively going on where it's like
as a
I
Christian,
really don't like the way that I don't like the logical consequences of if that really was true or something.
As a Christian, are you a moral realist?
Yeah.
I feel like that.
Yeah.
As in, I'd expect that of somebody who would be uncomfortable with never being able to truly infer intention.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot there, and then like it would also mean like a lot of what people are